Chapter 15. The fallen leaves return to their roots. New book or collection. When he was young, Qin Sheng did not understand why his grandfather always brought him to meet a lot of strangers. These people were hidden in the endless Zhongnan Mountains, just like those ancient heroes who cultivated in seclusion. They lived a life of peace and quiet, yet they were extremely mysterious. Every time he met an interesting person, his grandfather could chat with him for the whole day. He remembered that there was an old Taoist priest from Longhu Mountain who lived in the depths of Zhongnan Mountains. Every time they went there, they had to walk for 2 to 3 hours. His grandfather got along well with him and stayed there for 2 to 3 days. As he grew up, Qin Sheng gradually got used to this kind of life. He even liked it a little because these people were quite interesting. There were all kinds of people from all walks of life, ordinary people, office workers, businessmen, officials, gangsters. There were people from all walks of life, and many of them were powerful people. Qin Sheng loved listening to their stories and life experiences. There were some things that he did not understand before, but as he grew up, he understood that these things could not be bought with money. He also understood his grandfather's bitterness and conscience, which made him more mature and steady than his peers. When he met Han Guoping, he knew that Han Guoping was not a simple person. He was not a backpacker who had nothing better to do. He was similar to those people. Sometimes when they were lost and helpless, they wanted to escape from the world. They wanted to calm down and find their true selves. During that period of time, he and Han Guoping had traveled to many places and listened to Han Guoping talk about many things. The two of them had a lot in common. In his eyes, Han Guoping was a ruthless person who knew when to yield and when to stand tall. He had suffered hardships, been looked down upon, betrayed, and plotted against. However, he was able to accept everything calmly and face it head-on. That was why he finally achieved glory and success. However, he never thought that Han Guoping would end up like this. Qin Sheng only came back to his senses when the door of the study room was pushed open. It was Han Bing. She was dressed in plain clothes and her face was pale. She looked very tired, but her eyes were firm. Since the moment she received the call, she had not shed a single tear. "My lady!" Chen Bei Ming lowered his head and greeted her respectfully. With grandfather Han gone, the burden of the Han family was placed on this young woman's shoulders. He was not sure if she could handle it. "You're here," Han Bing looked at Qin Sheng and asked calmly. She did not know why, but after the accident, the person she wanted to see the most was this man whom she had just known for a few days. Perhaps only by his side could she find the most missing sense of security. Qin Sheng didn't know what to say. He wanted to comfort her, but he didn't know what to say. He could only nod awkwardly. Chen Bei Ming said in a low voice, "Qin Sheng, Master Han has left, but we still have a lot of things to deal with. So I want you to stay with Miss 24/7 during this period of time. I'm afraid that Miss will be in danger when Master Han leaves, whether it's from those people or our own people. Don't worry, I promised Uncle Han that I would protect Han Bing and not let anything happen to her." Qin Sheng squinted his eyes and said. Even if Chen Bei Ming did not say anything, Qin Sheng knew what he had to do. Chen Bei Ming would never doubt someone who was approved by Master Han. He nodded and said, "Miss, I'm going to do something first." After Chen Bei Ming left, only Qin Sheng and Han Bing were left in the study. They looked at each other and were speechless. She finally saw Qin Sheng again. She called more than 10 times, but no one picked up. At that time she was completely flustered. "Qin Sheng, I don't have a father anymore," Han Bing suddenly said with red eyes. After she said this, all the strength that Han Bing had in front of others disappeared instantly. Without any warning, she burst into tears and cried unscrupulously. Qin Sheng walked over and hugged Han Bing tightly. "Cry, it'll feel better if you cry." Han Bing hated Han Guoping, but no matter what, he was still her father. Han Bing knew that it had not been easy for him all these years, and he had never told her about it. But Han Bing was not stupid. As long as she thought about it, an ordinary poor boy from a village in the northwest had to go through a lot to reach the position that he had today in the Bund. Han Bing only hated Han Guoping's attitude towards the family and his indifference to her mother. But no matter what, Han Bing knew that her father loved her the most, more than anyone else. Now, this man who loved her deeply had suddenly left. He even used the most extreme method to end his rushed life. Her mother was gone, her father was gone, and they did not want her anymore. In the future, she would have to walk this long road alone. After some time, Han Bing finally cried enough. Qin Shing's t-shirt was completely soaked by her tears. "I'm sorry, I wet your shirt." Han Bing let go of Qin Shing and said with some embarrassment. This was the first time she hugged a man and cried. After crying, she felt much better. "It's okay," Qin Shing shook his head. The two of them sat on the sofa and chatted. Qin Shing stared at the chair thoughtfully and vaguely saw Han Guoping's shadow. Sometimes, death was not scary. What was scary was living. "Qin Shing, I regret not listening to you. I regret not caring about him. I regret not talking to him properly. I regret." Until now, Han Bing finally understood what Qin Shing said to her that day. Some people and some things, if you don't cherish them now, you might not have the chance to do so in the future. Don't blame yourself. I know that you love him very much. Qin Shing patted her shoulder and said, "I'm so sleepy, I'm really sleepy. I want to sleep. Is this just a dream? Is it a joke played by God? When I wake up, everything will be over." Han Bing said in a daze. "If you're sleepy, lean on me and sleep for a while." Qin Shing knew that Han Bing wanted to avoid everything in front of her, but he knew that there were still many things for Han Bing to face. Thus, Han Bing leaned on Qin Shing's shoulder, and not long after, she fell asleep. Qin Shing waited for her to fall asleep, then let her lie on the sofa. This way, she could sleep more comfortably. Coming out of the study, Qin Shing asked someone to guard the door, and no one was allowed to go in and disturb her. When Han Bing woke up naturally, he found Chen Bei-ming and asked what he could do. Chen Bei-ming did not hesitate and arranged a lot of things for Qin Shing. At noon, Xia Ding and the others finally woke up, so they called Qin Shing. Qin Shing told Chen Bei-ming that he had to go out to do something. When Han Bing woke up, he told her that he would be back soon. When he returned to Xia Ding's house, Yu Kefi and the others were chatting. After seeing Qin Shing, he smiled and asked, "Boss, you ran away early in the morning. Did you do something bad behind our back? Can your thoughts not be so dirty? I haven't seen you for more than 2 years. Who led you astray?" Qin Shing laughed and scolded him. Xia Ding just came out of the shower. Drying his hair, he asked curiously, "Boss, what happened? You were in a hurry when you left." "Something happened at my friend's house," Qin Shing said casually. "Do you need help?" Qin Shing shook his head. "Alas, I'd better drink less in the future. It's really not a good thing. Now I have a splitting headache. I have to rush back to Beijing later. I really envy you three. You can get together at any time in the future." Chow Yufeng stretched and sighed. "Second brother, as long as you want to get together, we can go to Beijing at any time," Yu Kefi said happily. Xia Ding said angrily, "You are a big talker. You are as busy as a ghost now. Last time I went to Nanjing, I told you in advance, but you still stood me up and said you were not there." "I can't help it, third brother. Sometimes I really want to live a simple life, but how can I do that? It's such a big company. If I don't take care of it, I will be annoyed by the old men's nagging," Yu Kefi said helplessly. Qin Shing poured a glass of water, walked over, and said, "Lao Si is right. Now you all have your own things to do and are busy all day long. But no matter what, as long as you are alive, you should live happily. Don't wrong yourself for others and make your life too tiring." "Boss, it's chicken soup for the soul time again." Xia Ding laughed. Chow Yufeng stood up and said, "Okay, go out and find a place to have a meal. Lao Si and I have to go home to find our mothers. When we have time, we will get together again. Go, go, go. I am starving. Xia Ding had already arranged lunch in a nearby restaurant. The food was relatively light. After lunch, the four people hugged and said goodbye. The driver sent Yu Kefi and Chao Yufeng to the high-speed railway station and the airport. Xia Ding looked at Qin Sheng and asked, "Boss, where are you going? I will send you. Or if you are free, let's find a place to relax and have a good talk." "I have something to do today. Another day. I will ask you out." "Then where are you going? I will send you." "No, I am nearby," Qin Sheng said casually. "Don't be polite with me. Anyway, I am free." Xia Ding directly pulled Qin Sheng out of the car. Qin Sheng had no choice but to let him send him to Thompson Golf. In fact, since last night, Xia Ding had a lot of questions. At this moment, Qin Sheng was going to Thompson Golf. He was more confused about what Qin Sheng was doing now. But he did not take the initiative to ask. After sending Qin Sheng there, Xia Ding left directly. When Qin Sheng returned to the Han's villa, Han Bing was still sleeping. He continued to help with things, such as preparing for Han Guoping's funeral, and so on. It was not until 4 o'clock in the afternoon that Han Bing woke up. In the following 3 days, Qin Sheng had been busy helping Han Bing. He saw the weak side of this seductress, and also her strong side. He also knew how big Han Guoping's career was, and what Han Bing had to face. However, next, Qin Sheng had to accompany Han Bing back to Tianshui, Gansu province. She wanted to send her parents' ashes back to her hometown for burial. This was what Han Guoping had told her before he died. Chapter 16. They couldn't do it. Han Guoping's funeral was very low-key, so low-key that it seemed as if nothing had happened. Han Guoping's subordinates and confidants wanted to hold a high-profile funeral and memorial service, but they were all mercilessly rejected by Han Bing. Whether it was Qin Sheng or Chen Beiming, both of them raised their hands in approval. But even so, the news of Han Guoping's suicide still spread like wildfire. Everyone was shocked. After all, Han Guoping was considered a big shot in the Bund. However, those who were familiar with Han Guoping's recent situation were not surprised by this result. Putting aside the fact that Third Master Wu added insult to injury, if Han Guoping did not die, many more people would have been involved. His death was the best outcome. Tomorrow morning, Qin Sheng and Chen Beiming would accompany Han Bing to send Han Guoping back to his hometown in Tianshui for burial. Han Bing did not invite anyone to go with her. Other than the two of them, there was only Old Man Wu who had followed Han Guoping for many years. The night before the departure, Han Guoping's confidants were all present in the Thompson Golf villa. Although Han Guoping was dead, someone still needed to take care of this mess. "Han Bing, I don't think you should rush to Tianshui. You're Master Han's only daughter. Now that he's gone, the company needs someone to stand up and deal with the remaining problems. The bank has already started collecting loans. Our debt has always been high. If we don't think of a way, we can only go bankrupt," a middle-aged man in a tang suit said with a frown. His name was Lu Hejun, a veteran who had followed Han Guoping to conquer the world. "Brother Lu is right. There have been a lot of things in the company recently. Master Han basically doesn't care about it. Partners, banks, and other aspects are pressuring us. Our capital chain is about to break. If we don't think of a way, we'll really be finished." This was the company's president and a professional manager. His name was Xing Ping. He was less than 30 years old and basically handled the company's affairs. Han Guoping valued him very much. The man sitting next to Han Bing took a sip of tea and said calmly, "I think everything can be delayed, but for this matter, let's listen to Han Bing. Death is the most important thing, let's bury him in peace. Master Han has worked hard all his life, it's time for him to have a good rest." In the living room, Han Bing, who looked haggard, sat on the sofa and listened to these people coldly. She did not say anything and let them quarrel. Qin Sheng and Chen Beiming stood behind Han Bing. He had heard about these people from Chen Beiming. The one who spoke was Zhao Dongxing. He was the second most important person in the company, second only to Grandfather Han. He was the vice president of the company and was also in charge of the matters that were not to be discussed in public. These three people represented three different forces. Lu Hejun represented the power of the old elders, while Zhao Dongxing represented the power of the newcomers. The two of them had always been sworn enemies. After all, the rise of Zhao Dongxing's group directly affected the interests of Lu Hejun's group. As for Xing Ping, he basically didn't meddle in the affairs of both sides. He belonged to the middle, but in the company, Xing Ping was the one who truly made the call. It doesn't matter what we say. Let's listen to what Han Bing has to say. Lu Hejun looked at Han Bing and asked. Han Bing said expressionlessly, I've already arranged it. I'll go to Tianshui tomorrow morning. We'll talk about other things when I come back. I'll have to trouble the three uncles to put in more effort these few days. I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on until then, Xing Ping said worriedly. He was not afraid of losing this dignified job, but he was unwilling to see the company that Grandfather Han built up with great difficulty collapse just like that. To be honest, Han Bing did not care about Han Guoping's matters at all. She just wanted to send her parents back to their hometown to be buried. Everything else could be discussed after she came back. Han Bing had already made up her mind to go back to Gansu first. It would take her 2 days. The others could do nothing but listen to Han Bing's arrangements. After the three of them left, only Han Bing, Qin Sheng, and Chen Beiming were left in the living room. Chen Beiming said without hesitation, Miss, Lu Hejun and Han Dongxing can't be trusted. Grandfather Han had always suspected that someone might be a traitor. Otherwise, so many things wouldn't have happened during this period. What about Xing Ping? Qin Sheng asked casually. Chen Beiming sneered and said, He doesn't have the guts. This person's biggest strength is that he knows how to act according to the situation. That's why Grandfather Han put him in that position. Grandfather Han will be in charge of the big things, and he can do whatever he wants to do with the small things. Qin Sheng listened quietly. After a moment of hesitation, he asked, I want to know, will Han Bing be in danger during this trip to Tianshui? If there's no danger, old Wu and I won't go with her. At the very least, if something happens to Miss, it'll be the most beneficial for Lu Hejun and Han Dongxing. Moreover, Grandfather Han's enemies once said that they would not let Grandfather Han have a good ending. Some people also used Miss to threaten Grandfather Han. Now that Grandfather Han has fallen, Miss is in the most danger, Chen Beiming said honestly. He had followed Grandfather Han for so many years and remembered many things. However, he had never been disloyal to Grandfather Han, because he owed Grandfather Han everything he had today. Without Grandfather Han, he might still be a fugitive now. Qin Sheng's expression changed slightly. It seemed that he had to get involved in this mess no matter what. At this moment, Qin Sheng's phone rang. He picked up the phone and looked at it. He was slightly confused. The others all looked at Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng did not want to pick it up, but he had no choice but to pick it up. Old Fox, what's up? What's up? Qin Sheng, where are you? Let's meet. Jiang Xianbang, who had just finished meeting his friends at Waldorf Astoria Hotel, said in a low voice. Qin Sheng said calmly, Where are you going? Waldorf Astoria Hotel lobby. After hanging up, Qin Sheng looked at Han Bing and said, I have something to do. I'm going out to meet an old friend. Go ahead. Han Bing smiled faintly. She then asked, Will you be back tonight? After saying this, she felt that this sentence was too ambiguous and lowered her head in embarrassment. I will be back. Qin Sheng nodded. Only then did Han Bing feel relieved. Qin Sheng drove a Mercedes-Benz from the Han family and went straight to Waldorf Astoria Hotel on the Bund. After Qin Sheng left, Chen Beiming asked meaningfully, Miss, Do you know anything about this man? At this time, except for old Wu, Chen Beiming did not believe anyone. If it were not for Han Bing's insistence that Qin Xing participate in the Han family's business, he would not have believed him. I don't know. I only know that my father asked him to protect me. Han Bing shook her head. She had never suspected Qin Xing. Although they had only known each other for a few days, she trusted Qin Xing very much. Before Grandfather Han's accident, Chen Beiming had only met Qin Xing once, but he had heard Grandfather Han mention him twice. He was afraid that there would be an accident, so he said, "I'm afraid that he might be sent by the enemy." Impossible. The night before yesterday, he was injured in order to protect me. The man who wanted to kill me was very powerful. I think his name is Yang Deng. Han Bing quickly explained. Hearing the name Yang Deng, Chen Beiming's face changed instantly. He asked, "What did you say his name was?" Yang Deng. Han Bing repeated. Chen Beiming squinted his eyes and pondered. He did not expect Yang Deng to take action. That third Master Wu really wanted to kill him. However, this biological son could actually defeat Yang Deng. His skills were really not simple. He reckoned that he was not weaker than himself. "He's fine." Old Wu, who had been outside, came in and said calmly. But his words were like a stabilizing force, making Chen Beiming completely relieved. When it came to judging people, he would never doubt old Wu, who had seen countless people. That's good. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. In the lobby of Waldorf Astoria Hotel, Jiang Xianbang sat alone in the corner and read the newspaper. He did not expect that he would really be responsible for cleaning up the mess of that kid. He did not expect that kid to almost kill the good seedling that third Master Wu had cultivated. Han Guoping died. He committed suicide. His death was very sudden. Now many people were staring at Han Guoping. He must not let this kid get involved. What's wrong? You're in a good mood. Did you think of me? After Qin Xing arrived at Waldorf Astoria Hotel, he easily found Jiang Xianbang. After all, he was a dazzling sight no matter where he went. Staring at Qin Xing, who was sitting opposite him, Jiang Xianbang scolded angrily, "You still have the mood to quarrel with me when a disaster is coming. You really don't know how high the sky is." "What do you mean by disaster is coming?" Qin Xing knew what Jiang Xianbang was talking about, so he deliberately laughed and said, "Quickly break up with the Han family. This is Shanghai, not Zhongnan Mountains. You're really capable. You seriously injured Third Master Wu's confidant. If I didn't show up to protect you, you might have already entered Huangpu River to feed the fish." Jiang Xianbang was a little angry and scolded loudly. Jiang Xianbang had always been smiling like a Maitreya Buddha. It was rare to see him angry. This time, he was really angry. After Qin Xing heard this, he put away his mischievous face. "Uncle Jiang, Han Guoping is already dead. Are these people still not going to let it go?" Qin Xing no longer called him Old Fox, but respectfully called him Uncle Jiang. Jiang Xianbang sighed and said, "Qin Xing, there is never a lack of intrigue and intrigue in places where there are benefits. Not to mention this is Shanghai, where the country's pride is, and the Yangtze River Delta is even more complicated. Everyone may be involved in a complicated force. Han Guoping is also a big shot in Shanghai. Have you ever thought about why he chose to commit suicide in the end? No matter how powerful Third Master Wu is, he was not to this extent. He chose to commit suicide because he was involved in a more complicated matter, which gave this group of people a chance. But Han Guoping's daughter has nothing to do with this matter." Qin Xing gritted his teeth and said. Han Bing had never touched Han Guoping's matters. Just because she was Han Guoping's daughter, did they have to kill her? Jiang Xianbang did not know what the relationship between Qin Xing and Han Guoping was. Why did he have to get involved in this matter? So he snorted and said, "You think a lot of things are too simple. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. When the wall is down, everyone pushes it. After Han Guoping's death, who will still think about his daughter? His subordinates are either thinking about saving their lives or making money for themselves. As for those outside, they are eyeing his huge business. Qin Shing squinted his eyes. Jiang Xianbang was telling the truth. Do you know what everyone hopes for the most? Jiang Xianbang asked meaningfully. Qin Shing pondered for a few seconds. His eyes changed instantly and said, "Only Han Bing's death will be the most beneficial for all parties." It's good that you understand. Now do you know why I came to you? Jiang Xianbang nodded silently. Naturally, he would not watch Qin Shing die. Qin Shing finally understood. He also understood that Han Bing's trip to Tianshui was full of danger. But even so, he had to give up on Han Bing now. Chapter 17. Never coming back, please collect, monthly ticket. Qin Shing had promised Han Guoping to protect Han Bing. Now that Han Guoping was dead, Qin Shing could totally ignore Han Bing. It was just a promise. In this society, if anyone took it seriously, they would pay the price with their life, and everyone would call them stupid. But at this time, Han Bing had no one to rely on. Qin Shing could not just stand by and watch her die. If he really did that, he might feel guilty for the rest of his life. There were things a man could do and not do, but the most important thing for a man was to be responsible. Therefore, Qin Shing was determined to step into the muddy waters this time. No matter how big the waves were, Qin Shing had to fight them. He only had one goal, which was to protect Han Bing. Uncle Jiang, thank you very much. I know you are thinking for me. Qin Shing shook his head and smiled bitterly. But I can't watch Han Bing die. This is not my character. Unless I die, no one can touch Han Bing. Why are you so stubborn? Jiang Xianbang did not expect the final result to be like this. Not only did he not dissuade Qin Shing, but he also made Qin Shing firm in his decision. Qin Shing sneered. I'm alone, what's there to be afraid of? Isn't it just death? As long as I don't die, I will accompany them to the end. I can't compete with their strength, wealth, or background, but I will gamble with my life. I don't believe that they are gods. You! Jiang Xianbang pointed at Qin Shing. He was furious and completely speechless. He did not know what to say. Qin Shing stood up and bowed to Jiang Xianbang with a smile. Then he turned around and left. Jiang Xianbang looked at Qin Shing's back and pondered. He had done all he could, but Qin Shing still chose to do this. He could not predict the final result, but he had a clear conscience. After a long time, Jiang Xianbang was relieved. If Qin Shing agreed, then he might not be the Qin Shing he knew. Jiang Xianbang had no choice but to quickly contact his friend in Gansu. This was the last thing he could do for Qin Shing. After confirming the relationship, he sent a message to Qin Shing. There was only a phone number and a short sentence, "Look for me if you need me." Sigh, what kind of sin have I committed? After sending the message, Jiang Xianbang did not know whether to laugh or cry. Sin? He had committed too many sins. It was already a miracle that he was still alive. If he did not owe old man Qin a huge favor, he would not have done so many things for Qin Shing. Perhaps this was karma. Qin Shing did not return to Thompson Golf. Instead, he called Xia Ding. Xia Ding said he had nothing to do at home. At the entrance of the neighborhood, he happened to see Xia Ding sending a pretty lady out. That lady was wearing a deep black V-neck dress, her breasts faintly discernible. She was the real deal. Most importantly, it wasn't the one from last time. The beautiful woman was sent away by Xia Ding's driver. Xia Ding had already seen Qin Shing. He walked straight over and said, "Boss, what's wrong? Why do you look so pale? Aren't you afraid that your body will collapse if you do this?" Qin Shing said angrily. "Ding Xia, ding I Xia, ding I ding. I ding Xia I ding ding of. Xia, F*CKU. Qin Sheng pointed his middle finger at him. Xia Ding did not get angry. He laughed out loud and put his arm around Qin Sheng's shoulder as they walked into the neighborhood. After entering the door, Qin Sheng sat on the balcony while Xia Ding brought over the unfinished bottle of red wine. The two of them drank and enjoyed the night view of Shanghai while eating peanut. Qin Sheng vaguely remembered that when he first arrived in Shanghai, the first time he stood at Lujiazui and looked up at the tall buildings, his first reaction was awe, followed by the desire to have a place here. 6 years had passed. When he returned to Shanghai, the awe had disappeared. There was more ambition hidden under the calmness. "Boss, what are you thinking about?" Xia Ding frowned and asked when he saw Qin Sheng was lost in thought. Qin Sheng thought for a moment and said truthfully, "Lao San, I have to go to Gansu tomorrow morning. The earliest I will be back is the night after tomorrow. The latest may be 3 or 4 days. This trip may be a little dangerous." "Boss, why do I always feel that you are strange when you come back this time?" Xia Ding replied in a daze. Qin Sheng continued, "If I can't come back, help me with a few things. First, help me repay a debt of gratitude. You know my sister. She is now studying at Fudan University. She is our junior. Her father was sent to prison last year and her mother has just been seriously ill. Help me take care of them in the future." At this time, Qin Sheng seemed to be making arrangements for his death, which really scared Xia Ding. "Second, I will give you a phone number. When you find this woman, thank her. Owe her the hot pot in this life. Third, find an old man. His name is Chen Chongxing. He lives in Beijing. I don't know where exactly, but he knows my background. My grandfather said that if I have the fate to meet him, the old man will tell me everything. But if I can't find him, then forget it. I don't care anyway." After Qin Sheng finished speaking, he was silent. Xia Ding did not come back to his senses. He was stunned for a moment before he said, "Damn, boss, what is going on? If there is anything, don't bear it alone. There are still us brothers. Don't ask too much. If I can come back alive, I will tell you in detail." Qin Sheng did not want to explain too much. He did not want Xia Ding and the others to get involved. No matter how Xia Ding asked, Qin Sheng did not speak. In the end, he completely gave up. He could only pray that Qin Sheng would be fine and wait for him to come back. Qin Sheng did not stay at Xia Ding's place for long. At 10:30 p.m., he returned to the Thompson Golf Villa of the Han family. Inside and outside the villa, Chen Biming had arranged more than a dozen bodyguards. These were all his trusted subordinate. Moreover, he did not believe that anyone would dare to make a move here. After all, there were too many rich and powerful big shots living here. In the villa, Han Bing was still awake. She had been living in the villa for the past few days. This was the first time she had stayed in that house for so long, except for the holidays. In the living room on the second floor, Han Bing sat on the sofa in a daze. Qin Sheng sat next to her and asked in a low voice, "What's the plan for tomorrow?" Han Bing only noticed that Qin Sheng was back when she heard his voice. She said in surprise, "You're back." Qin Sheng smiled and nodded. "There's an airport in Tianshui. Tomorrow, we will take my dad's private plane to Tianshui. Someone will pick us up and take us back to our hometown. There are some customs for burial in our hometown. They have already arranged it. We will be buried the day after tomorrow morning. We will stay for another half a day and then go back to Shanghai the next morning." Han Bing had already arranged the itinerary with Chen Biming and her relative. Qin Sheng frowned and said, "2 nights. Yes, what's wrong?" Han Bing said casually. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "Nothing, I was just asking." He had originally thought that he would be back the day after tomorrow night. He did not expect to stay for another night. However, Qin Sheng did not have any objections. Anyway, he had already prepared for the worst. "It's getting late, I'm going to bed. You should sleep early too." Han Bing got up and said good night to Qin Sheng before returning to her room. After Han Bing left, old Wu, who had not spoken to Qin Sheng, slowly sat opposite him. The old man's body was hunched and his face was full of wrinkles. However, his body was strong and his eyes were even more vicious. You didn't have to get involved. The white-haired old Wu squinted his eyes and smiled lightly. Qin Sheng had been quietly looking at the old man since he went upstairs. In fact, he knew that the old man must have been paying attention to him. I promised Uncle Han, Qin Sheng said calmly. Old Wu played with the old Buddha beads in his hand and said, "This trip to Tianshui might be a one-way trip. I know, but I have to go. If I don't go, I will feel guilty." Qin Sheng did not hide anything. He felt that he would only be childish to deal with this old man who was shrewd and scheming. It was the easiest to be straightforward. "Young man, you are very good." Guoping did not choose the wrong person. Old Wu rarely praised Qin Sheng, which surprised Qin Sheng. He laughed and said, "Old master, no matter how you live, you have a lifetime. But if you want to live a useless and boring life, you might as well die early. A bad life is better than a good death." You young people. Old Wu did not seem to want to chat with Qin Sheng. He just sat down and got up and left with a smile. After old Wu left, Qin Sheng also went back to his room to rest. In the morning, when Qin Sheng woke up, Han Bing was still sleeping soundly. However, Chen Beiming was already training with old Wu in the yard. After Qin Sheng finished breakfast, Han Bing woke up. Her face was a little pale and her eyes were swollen and dark. Obviously, she had insomnia last night and fell asleep very late. After breakfast, they packed their things. The Han family's bodyguards sent Han Bing and the rest to the airport. Han Bing hugged her father and mother's urns tightly. When the Han family's Gulfstream G450 took off, Qin Sheng looked at the hazy Shanghai outside the window and sighed. More than 20 years ago, Han Guoping first came to Shanghai. Today, 20 years later, he would completely leave this city. Chapter 18. It's over. Please collect monthly tickets. Qin Sheng had once read a sentence. How high must a man reach in order to avoid dying a nameless death? Did Han Guoping count? It seemed that his death had only caused a ripple in the upper circles, but to the majority of ordinary people, his death was like a pebble thrown into a lake. It couldn't cause a huge wave and was completely insignificant. What about him? If an accident really happened during this trip to Tianshui, how many people would know that he was dead and how many would cry for him? Qin Sheng laughed at himself. He could not die yet, so he had to fight for it. It was not the first time he had encountered such a crisis in the past 2 years. It was the first time for Qin Sheng to take a private jet. He was not excited at all. After all, he was not a hothead who had never seen the world. Since he was a child, he had been nurtured by his grandfather to have this kind of character, so he did not value these worldly possessions. Han Bing, who was sitting opposite, was also staring out of the window. Maybe she was thinking about what Qin Sheng was thinking. Han Guoping and his wife's ashes were placed on the seat next to them. Chen Beiming and old Wu sat behind them. "You didn't sleep well last night, did you? I'll wake you up when we get there. There are many things to do in Tianshui," Qin Sheng said softly, feeling sorry for Han Bing. Han Guoping's death was a huge blow to Han Bing. From that day onwards, she could not return to her former self. She felt an invisible pressure that was about to crush her. "Okay." Han Bing nodded. She was really tired, so she closed her eyes and fell asleep soon after. Qin Sheng looked at the exhausted Han Bing. She had lost a lot of weight these few days. Her face was pale and she had dark circles under her eyes. She was no longer the Ms. Perfect who had been arrogant when they first met. Qin Sheng sighed. "Our fathers are our biggest support. When they fall, we who do not want to grow up have to grow up." It took 2.5 hours to fly from Shanghai to Tianshui, Gansu Province. Tianshui was a small city, but it was considered a good city in the western region, excluding the provincial capitals. Tianshui Airport was very small and there were only a few flights to the nearby provincial capitals. When the plane landed, Han Bing and Qin Sheng walked out of the airport with Han Guoping and his wife's urns in their arms. Han Bing took a deep breath of the dry air, gritted her teeth and said, "Dad, Mom, we are going home." The air was filled with the smell of loess and sand. It was already the end of October. Compared to Shanghai, which was still warm, this place had already entered the rhythm of winter. On the tarmac of the airport, the relatives of the Han family had been waiting for a long time. When a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs rise to the heavens. Han Guoping's life in Shanghai was limitless, and these relatives of his from his hometown had also become local tycoons under his protection. Han Guoping's hometown was some distance away from Tianshui City. It was located in the mountains 30 kilometers southeast of the city. It belonged to the Meiji district. The most famous place nearby was the Meiji Grotto, but it was still some distance away from their Han village. After getting used to the skyscrapers in Shanghai, looking at the endless mountains in the northwest, it actually had a special charm. This mountain was called Long Mountain, which belonged to the Qinling Mountains like Zhongnan Mountains. The Han village was at the foot of a small mountain, which was also called Wangye Mountain. There had never been a Wangye, but the most powerful person there was Han Guoping. This was Han Guoping's hometown. After Han Guoping became rich, he naturally did not forget about this place. The village road and the highway that led to the provincial road outside were all built with Han Guoping's money. There were also dozens of new houses in the village and a small square. Although most of the relatives of the Han family had moved to the city or Lanzhou, they would return to their hometown during Chinese New Year. Therefore, when Han Guoping was in trouble this time, the villagers came to help. Qin Sheng, who had lived in Zhongnan Mountains since he was young, had a natural affinity with the mountains. He sat in the car and stared at the mountains outside. Han Bing, who was sitting in the back, asked, "Is it far from Xi'an?" Qin Sheng thought for a moment and said, "Not far. Xi'an is 300 kilometers east from Tianshui. It will only take a few hours." "Oh, I have not been to Xi'an," Han Bing said in a low voice. Qin Sheng nodded and said, "If there is a chance, I will bring you around. Why don't we go to Xi'an the day after tomorrow?" Han Bing did not want to go back to Shanghai. She wanted to relax outside. However, Qin Sheng did not dare to let her continue to stay because it would be more dangerous. Moreover, there were many things in Shanghai that Han Bing needed to deal with, so Qin Sheng did not answer. After arriving at Han village, Qin Sheng saw from afar that the small square had already been set up with red and white tents. The villagers were busy, and there were cooks and women preparing the banquet. Han Guoping and his wife's morning hall was set up in the Han family's courtyard, which was the same as the customs in Xi'an. When the motorcade arrived at the Han family, the relatives of the Han family surrounded them. The women began to cry bitterly, as well as Han Guoping's cousins. Qin Sheng did not know who was really sad and who was pretending to be sad. At this time, the funeral band also started to play sad music. The atmosphere was extremely sad. Han Bing was already in tears. Qin Sheng and Chen Beiming just followed behind. They were afraid that someone would take advantage of the situation. Han Bing's uncle was in charge of the whole funeral. Under his guidance, everyone entered the Han family's gate and invited Han Guoping and his wife's ashes into the mourning hall. Then, they began to burn incense and kowtow. Whether it was the Han family or the other villagers in Han village, their houses were the kind of bungalows that were common in the northwest. There was a door, front yard, main house and backyard. Han Bing was wearing mourning clothes. She knelt on both sides with Han Guoping's nephews and nieces, welcoming the relatives and friends who came to mourn. Old Wu went out for a stroll. Qin Sheng and Chen Beiming stood by the side. Chen Beiming said in a low voice, "You go eat first, I'll take over later." The two had already discussed that they would not leave Han Bing's side 24 hours a day. One of them must be present at all times. The funeral would continue until the next morning after the burial. This period was also the most chaotic and complicated. Time passed gradually. Dusk came and went, and finally night came. It was a little cold at night in the northwest. At this time, Qin Sheng and Chen Beiming were even more worried. They were always on guard against unknown dangers. After the banquet in the evening, there was a simple memorial service. Han Guoping's brother was to read the eulogy. The outside was crowded with relatives and friends. When the memorial service was over, Han Bing got up and wanted to go to the toilet. Danger finally appeared. A man wearing a white mourning hat hid a dagger in his hand. He blended into the crowd and looked at Han Bing with a sinister look. Chen Beiming and Qin Sheng followed Han Bing. When the man was about to get close to Han Bing, Chen Beiming immediately rushed in front of Han Bing and held the man's wrist tightly. Then, he carried the man and pushed him to the corner. Qin Sheng pulled Han Bing. Their bodies blocked everyone's sight. Han Bing still did not know what was going on. Chen Beiming and the killer secretly competed with each other with the dagger. In the end, Chen Beiming was stronger. He directly stabbed the dagger into the killer's abdomen. After stabbing several times, he covered the man's mouth to prevent him from screaming. When Chen Beiming hugged the killer and left, ready to deal with this trouble, Qin Sheng also pulled Han Bing back to the back room. At this time, it was safest to stay in the room. No one else noticed this little episode. After the memorial service ended, the relatives and friends who were supposed to go back had already left. It was very cold outside, so the remaining people also went back to their rooms. When Qin Sheng and Han Bing walked deep into the corridor, another man directly rushed towards Han Bing with a machete. In a split second, Qin Sheng, who was shocked, quickly pushed Han Bing away. Han Bing staggered from the push and almost fell to the ground. Qin Sheng dodged in a hurry, but the tip of the knife still cut his shoulder. "Damn it!" Qin Sheng cursed in his heart. After the furious Qin Sheng came back to his senses, he lifted his leg and kicked towards the side of the killer's face. However, it was blocked by the killer's arm. The killer's machete in his hand once again slashed towards Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng bent down to avoid it. Before the killer turned around, he directly hit the killer's back with his elbow. Then, he reached out to grab the killer's arm and used all his strength to knee the killer's fragile face. Just when Qin Sheng and the killer were fighting desperately, Han Bing stared at them dumbfoundedly. She was so scared that she forgot to scream for help. However, the real crisis only appeared at this time. Another killer rushed over from the courtyard. This time, it was not a dagger, nor was it a machete, nor was it anything else. It was a pitch-black gun. After seeing Han Bing, the killer immediately pointed the gun at her. Qin Sheng, who had already seen the killer, could not care less at this time even if he had the power to turn the situation around. Chapter 19. I can't leave anymore. I wish everyone a happy Christmas Eve. Old Guan is still working hard on his novel. Can you guys collect his book and vote for him? Qin Sheng and Chen Beiming had been on high alert ever since they arrived at Han Village. After all, this kind of funeral was messy and no one knew each other. Everyone thought that it was a friend or relative of the Han family. This was the perfect opportunity for those people. They didn't expect that after a whole day, they would make their move when it was almost night time. What was more unexpected was that they actually used a gun. Qin Sheng's heart was dead. Was Han Bing really going to die like this? At this critical moment, just as the killer was about to shoot, a brick floated out of nowhere and hit the killer's wrist. The gun in his hand was thrown a few meters away. Qin Sheng then noticed that old Wu was standing at the door not far away. He was the one who threw the brick. Otherwise, how could he be so accurate? Without any hesitation, the killer bent down to pick up the gun. Qin Sheng pushed the killer who was fighting with him towards old Wu. Then, he rushed towards the killer who was trying to pick up the gun and kicked him in the back. The killer was sent flying towards the gun beside him. When he wanted to get up, Qin Sheng, who was the first to get up, kicked him in the stomach again. Elder Wu had already rushed over and directly entangled with the other assassin. In a single exchange, the other assassin was knocked to the ground by Elder Wu. The two assassins saw that the situation was hopeless and knew that they would definitely not be a match for Elder Wu if they stayed. After looking at each other, they directly ran towards the backyard. Old Wu stayed behind to protect Han Bing while Qin Sheng chased after them. When he reached the backyard, the two killers had already jumped over the wall and escaped. Qin Sheng didn't dare to chase after them. He was afraid that it was a trap. He could only curse a few times and come back. When Qin Sheng came back, Old Wu had already helped Han Bing back to her room. Chen Beiming had gone to deal with the corpse and had not returned yet. The commotion just now had alarmed the rest of the Han family. Other than Han Bing's cousin who saw it, the rest of them did not know what had happened. The gun was also kept by Old Wu. Han Bing, on the other hand, was terrified. She sat on the bed and did not say a word. Old Wu gestured for Qin Sheng to say something to Han Bing's cousin. Qin Sheng pulled his cousin out of the room. "Brother Han." Qin Sheng held Han Bing's cousin, Han Song, and called out politely. Han Song was the son of Han Bing's uncle. He was now considered a big shot in Tianshui. He had started a construction company and was doing well. He had seen some of the world, but it was the first time he had seen someone use a gun. "Old Qin, who wants to kill Bing Bing?" Han Song, who had a crew cut and looked a little sloppy, asked directly. Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Brother Han, you don't have to ask about some things. Just pretend that you didn't see what happened just now. I meant well. Bing Bing is my little sister. How can I sit back and do nothing?" Han Song insisted. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "If you really need help, I definitely won't hesitate. However, those are all Master Han's enemies in the Yangtze River Delta. You really can't help much." When Han Song heard this, he finally understood what she meant. He did not even dare to say that he was omnipotent in Tianshui, let alone in a place like Yangtze River Delta. "I know, but I still have some power in Tianshui." Qin Sheng smiled and said a few compliments. Then he let Han Song go back to sleep and he went into the room to accompany Han Bing. Half an hour later, Chen Beiming finally came back. Qin Sheng did not say much about how he dealt with the killer's body. He only told him what happened afterward. "Who do you think did it? One of us or an outsider?" The two squatted at the door and smoked. They were alert to the surroundings and chatted casually. "It could be anyone." Chen Beiming was not sure because there were too many people who wanted to kill Han Bing. In the circle, he suspected Zhao Dongxing the most. In Shanghai, he suspected Zhou Wenwu the most. In Yangtze River Delta, he suspected Third Master Wu the most. Qin Sheng sighed and said, "Han Bing is the only heir to Master Han's big business. If they want to get their hands on it, they must get rid of Han Bing. However, even if they get through tonight and tomorrow night, there will be danger at any time in the future. This is not a solution. Do you have any good ideas?" Chen Beiming agreed and looked at Qin Sheng and asked. Qin Sheng thought about this for a long time. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Han Bing gave up on inheriting Master Han's business. The whole company is bankrupt and liquidated. If they have the ability, they can take whatever they want." "What did you say?" Chen Beiming was shocked. "This is the family business that Master Han worked so hard to build. How can he give it up just like that? Sometimes life is more important than these things. Moreover, Han Bing may not be willing to inherit it. Do you think a woman like her can control those big shots who are eyeing her covetously? Even if she inherits it, do you think she will be happy?" Qin Sheng said confidently. Chen Beiming fell into silence. What Qin Sheng said was not unreasonable. Han Bing had never been in contact with any of Master Han's businesses since she was young. Moreover, there were many things that could not be seen in the light of day. Actually, I want to know what Han Bing thinks. When the time comes, let her make the decision. No matter what decision she makes, I will support her without hesitation. Qin Shing sighed and said. However, he could see that Han Bing was not interested in these things at all. The most important thing for her now was to quickly deal with her father's funeral. Chen Beiming still did not say anything. He would take one step at a time. Nothing happened that night. However, Qin Shing and Chen Beiming did not sleep. Han Bing, who was in the room, did not fall asleep either. The next day, when the sky was just beginning to brighten, all the relatives and friends had arrived. Everyone started to get busy. After a short ceremony, a burst of firecrackers was heard. An old man shouted with a deep voice, "Wake up!" The relatives and friends, who were wearing mourning clothes and white mourning hats, sent Han Guoping off for the last time. Han Guoping's grave was located at the back of the mountain. It was a treasure land with good feng shui. He had specially spent a lot of money to hire a feng shui master to choose the place. He had decided from the beginning that he would be buried in Han village after his death. Qin Sheng had learned feng shui from his grandfather since he was young, so he more or less knew a little about it. After some observation, he knew that Han Guoping's money was not spent in vain. He could be considered as half an expert. For some reason, the older people were, the more they believed in these things. Qin Sheng did not know if it was because he was in awe of certain things or because he was really superstitious. The firecrackers were set off, the morning music was played, and the sound of crying shook the sky. Han Bing slowly placed the ashes of Han Guoping and his wife into the grave. With the efforts of a dozen villagers, the grave was soon ready. At this time, Han Bing was lying on the grave, crying her heart out. She cried so much that she fainted a few times. She would never have her parents again in this life. This farewell would be farewell forever. The respected elders in the village began to host the memorial ceremony. Qin Sheng, who was standing at the side, looked at the pile of yellow soil and sighed. No matter how powerful a big shot was, he would just be a pile of yellow soil after his death. Most importantly, how did he live his life? Han Guoping had gone from an ordinary poor farmer's boy to a big shot in Shanghai. He definitely did not live in vain. "Farewell, Master Han," Qin Sheng said quietly in his heart. The funeral was finally over. After lunch, the villagers helped to clean up the mess. Those who should go home had also gone home. Those who came from the city had also returned to the city. After all, everyone had things to do. It was already afternoon. There were only a few elders and peers left in the Han family. Han Bing chatted with them while Qin Sheng and Chen Beiming were discussing whether they should leave tonight. In the end, they decided to leave tonight. Han Bing also agreed. After all, what happened last night was still fresh in her mind. Last night was probably just a small test. If they could succeed, they would succeed. If not, they would give up. Tonight was their last chance. They would definitely not miss it. As villagers, they had to live with their hometown. This was also an important reason why no matter how high Han Guoping climbed, he would come back 2 or 3 times a year. Apart from paying respects to the elders who had passed away, the most important thing was to interact with the elders and peers in the village. He could not let others say that he had become rich and forgotten his root. Therefore, the last part of the funeral was to return the gift. The relatives of the Han family had already bought the gifts and brought Han Bing from house to house to return the gifts, thanking them for their help in the past 2 days. Qin Sheng, Chen Beiming and Old Wu followed them. After they were done, the sky had already turned dark. Han Bing said goodbye to the elders in the family. Her uncle and uncle stayed in the village, and would return to the city the next morning. So they arranged for Han Song and another cousin to send them back to the city. The Han family had already booked the best hotel in Tianshui. They would stay in Tianshui tonight and take the Gulfstream G450 to Shanghai the next morning. When they parted, Han Bing was a little reluctant. After all, she had completely left her parents here. In the future, she would probably only come back to see them 3 times a year. This made Han Bing feel bad. As for the conflict between her and her father, it had already disappeared when she found out that her father had committed suicide. Chen Bei Ming drove Han Bing's uncle's Range Rover. Qin Xing sat in the passenger seat while Han Bing sat in the back in a daze. Qin Xing comforted her. Life and death are up to fate. People have to look forward. Han Bing, you still have a long way to go. I know, Han Bing said quietly. The sky was completely dark. Han Bing's cousins and Old Wu were in the Toyota Prado, while the Land Rover was following behind. They were now on a mountain road. After they finished this section of the road and went around the mountain, they would reach the provincial road. Only then would they be safe. Qin Xing and Chen Beiming had studied the route in the afternoon. This section of the road was the most dangerous. If they did not make a move in Han Village, the gang would most likely make a move on this section of the road. Secondly, they would look for opportunities when they reached the city. So at this moment, they did not dare to relax. Chapter 20. Rather break, never give way. Merry Christmas to everyone. Give me your collection and monthly ticket. This road only led to Han Village. There were not many cars on this road, let alone at night. Qin Xing and Chen Beiming knew what was going on when 2 cars appeared side by side. Whether it was in front or behind, the 4 cars had no intention of slowing down. The left side of the mountain road was a ravine, and the right side was a barren hill overgrown with weeds and trees. Fortunately, it was not a dead end with a cliff, or they would definitely die here tonight. Han Song, who was driving in front, did not know what was going on. He was still waiting for others to make way for him. Old Wu, who was sitting in the passenger seat, pulled the steering wheel to the right and shouted, "Step on the brake." Han Song had never encountered such a situation before. He was shocked by Old Wu's roar and subconsciously stepped on the brake. The Toyota Prado went to the mountain next to him, directly breaking 2 small trees and finally crashing into a big tree before it stopped. Old Wu was already over 60 years old and had experienced all kinds of storms. After pulling the steering wheel and losing control of the Toyota Prado, he unlocked the door as fast as he could and jumped out of the car without hesitation. He rolled a few times before stabilizing himself. Although he was in a sorry state, he was too agile. Chen Beiming, who was behind, was much calmer than Han Song. After knowing that there was no way out, he slowed down and went up the hill. Unfortunately, there were only trees on the side of the road, and he had no choice but to stop. "Get out!" Chen Beiming shouted. Qin Xing got out of the car first and then pulled Han Bing out. He did not plan to care about others and directly pulled Han Bing up the hill. Chen Beiming and Old Wu also chose to follow Qin Xing and Han Bing. No one wanted to die here. They were outnumbered and they did not know the specific situation. If there were guns like last night, they would be dead if they stayed here. Even if they called the police, it would take at least half an hour for the police to arrive. As for Han Bing's cousins, they had already fainted in the car. Qin Xing and the others did not care about them now. Their lives were in God's hands. The 4 cars had also arrived at this time. After stopping, a dozen men came out. The middle-aged man who led the group shouted, "Leave no one alive, don't let anyone go." More than a dozen men were holding machetes in their hands, and 3 of them were even holding guns. As expected, they wanted to kill all of them. A group of people directly rushed toward Qin Xing and the others. Han Bing also looked back. She wanted to see if her cousins had come out. Qin Xing shouted, "What are you looking at? Run!" As soon as he finished speaking, a few gunshots were fired at the side of Qin Xing and the others. Han Bing was so scared that she screamed. The gunshots resounded through the whole mountain. These people were really unscrupulous. Fortunately, there were trees everywhere in the mountain. In addition, it was dark and there was no moon, so Qin Xing and the others were not hit. They did not dare to stay any longer and ran up the mountain without hesitation. However, those were all young and vigorous lads. Qin Sheng still had a woman and Mr. Wu, who was over 60 years old. No matter how strong Mr. Wu's physical strength was, how could he be compared to the young? After running for a few minutes, old Wu panted and said, "We can't go on like this. They will chase us to death. Call the police first." Only then did Qin Sheng and Chen Beiming come back to their senses. They were so focused on running that they forgot to call the police. No matter how long it took for the police to arrive, they would make those people afraid and give them more chances to survive. Chen Beiming immediately called the police and told them the location of the gunfight. When the other side heard the news, they were shocked and quickly asked for the exact location. They told Chen Beiming to protect himself and the police would arrive soon. "Beiming, Qinsheng, you two take Bing Bing and run first. I will delay them here and give you enough time." Mr. Wu seemed to have given up the opportunity to escape and said bluntly. Han Bing shouted, "Grandpa Wu, no. If we go together. You can't stay here. Mr. Wu, you are not a match for those people alone. They have guns." Qin Sheng frowned and said. At this time, the situation was very critical. "Me too. Qin Sheng, you take Miss away. No matter what, protect her. If anything happens to her, I will not forgive you." Chen Beiming knew that he was not a match for those people alone. If he stayed, with his and Mr. Wu's skills, they might not be able to survive, but they could definitely delay for a while. "You guys!" Qin Sheng shouted with a complicated look in his eyes. Chen Beiming could not stand men being so wishy-washy. Moreover, the other side had already caught up. He shouted again, "Go, we are the Han family. You are not. There is no need to stand up for them. Protect Miss, or else we will all die." Qin Sheng gritted his teeth. At this time, there was no time to be sentimental. No matter what, someone had to stand up for them. He had no choice but to hold Han Bing's bone-chilling hand. Han Bing was already in tears. She cried and shouted, "I won't go, I won't go." How could Qin Sheng let her be? He gritted his teeth, carried her on his shoulder and ran towards the mountains. Chen Beiming and Mr. Wu looked at each other. They had already made up their minds to die. Mr. Wu had witnessed Han Guoping's transformation from an ordinary person to a veteran of the Shanghai Bund. Not many people could understand the feelings they had for Han Guoping over the years. Although Mr. Wu looked calm on the surface, he was actually very touched by Han Guoping's death. However, as an old man over 60 years old, he had experienced too many ups and downs. As for Chen Beiming, he was grateful for Han Guoping's recognition. To Chen Beiming, even a drop of water would be returned with a gushing spring, let alone a recognition. Therefore, he knew what the Han family would go through after Han Guoping's death, but he still stood up for them without hesitation. This was the true nature of a man. After protecting Qin Sheng and Han Bing for a few minutes, they finally arrived at a dense forest. Chen Beiming and Mr. Wu split up and got ready. At this time, the group of people had also caught up. Chen Beiming held the gun in his hand. Although it only had a few bullets, it would definitely be able to delay the opponents for some time. Mr. Wu only held a dagger. With his strength, he could also handle a certain number of people. Tonight, they would be unrestrained. When the nearest man arrived, Chen Beiming, who was hiding behind a tree, aimed and directly shot him in the head. The gunshot was ear-piercing and the man fell to the ground. This shot directly stunned the group of people. The dozens of men were stunned and did not dare to come closer. "Boss, what should we do?" The man next to him asked the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man said in a deep voice, "I didn't expect them to have guns. But it's okay, there are only a few of them. We have so many people. If we split up and surround them, I don't believe they can leave alive." Under the middle-aged man's command, the dozens of men immediately split up and formed a circle. 3 men with guns were in 3 different directions. During this time, Chen Bei-ming fired another 2 shots, but unfortunately, he did not hit his opponent. Out of 7 bullets, only 5 were left. Chen Bei-ming and Mr. Wu originally wanted to attack while kicking, but they were too busy, so they let them surround them. The circle of encirclement was getting smaller and smaller. Mr. Wu shouted to Chen Bei-ming, "Split up and break out of here." Chen Bei-ming also felt that he would die if he continued like this, so he took the initiative to break out of the encirclement. However, he did not expect that as soon as he came out, a bullet would hit his shoulder. Chen Bei-ming grimaced in pain and blood instantly flowed out. On the other side, Mr. Wu reacted very quickly. A few bullets did not hit him. When he rushed in front of the nearest man, he dodged the man's machete and directly stabbed the dagger into the man's heart. The other men surrounded him closely, not giving him a chance to breathe. In the dark, Mr. Wu began to fight with 6 or 7 men in close combat. Mr. Wu's physical strength was getting weaker and weaker. At this time, he had been slashed several times. On the other side, Chen Bei-ming was in a worse situation. The 3 armed men directly aimed at him and shot at him from 3 directions. Chen Bei-ming's bullets were quickly used up. His thigh and abdomen had been shot, so he no longer had the strength to fight. He began to be in a trance and his eyes began to blur. He leaned against the tree and did not want to fall. To him, a man could die standing, but he would never live lying down. He just wanted to die standing up. After making sure that he had used up all his bullets, the 3 men slowly approached Chen Bei-ming. After finding that he had completely lost the ability to fight back, they coldly snorted and directly raised their guns to Chen Bei-ming's heart. "I'll send you on your way," the man said coldly. Chen Bei-ming sneered and said, "Master Han, little Chen is here." When the gunshots rang out, he could have lived a dignified life, and could have continued to make a name for himself in the Bund as long as he agreed to cooperate with his enemies. However, he refused without hesitation. This was Chen Bei-ming. It was a pity that he would die in a foreign place. When Chen Bei-ming closed his eyes, Mr. Wu finally could not hold on anymore. He was continuously slashed by machetes, and several people on the opposite side were also injured. Finally, one of the men directly stabbed the old man's heart with a machete. The old man stared angrily at the gang of bandits, and then slowly fell backward. The old man, who was feared by many people in the Bund, finally fell to the point of being hacked to death. In fact, they could have avoided all this. They only needed to take a step back. However, people did not live for money, power, or status. They must have a bottom line and principles. Otherwise, they would just be walking corpses. Chapter 21. Fight to the Death, New Week, Wish Everyone All the Best. Collection, monthly tickets, the more the better. Old Wu and Chen Bei-ming had sacrificed their lives to buy precious time for Qin Shing and Han Bing. At this moment, Qin Shing had already dragged Han Bing and ran far away. Qin Shing had been playing in the mountains since he was young, so he had an advantage over everyone else in terms of survival in the mountains. Han Bing had only left the Han village for Shanghai when she was 16 years old. This was not only her parents' hometown, it was also her hometown. She had played in the mountains when she was young and knew everything about this place very well. In the beginning, Qin Shing was afraid that Han Bing would run back willfully. This was not a matter of love, nor was it a game. It was a matter of life and death. How could he let Han Bing do as she pleased? Hence, he directly carried Han Bing. Fortunately, Han Bing was not very heavy. She weighed about 50 kilograms and her figure was well maintained. Qin Shing treated it as an armed off-road. After running for an unknown amount of time, Qin Shing finally could not hold on anymore. In addition, Han Bing kept struggling and Qin Shing's hand was placed on her perky butt, which made her blush. After putting Han Bing down, Qin Shing panted heavily. This was already his limit. Fortunately, he had great stamina. If he was an ordinary person, he would not have been able to run for a long time. Qin Shing did not dare to rest for too long, for fear that the group of people would catch up. After recovering, he continued to run forward while pulling Han Bing. This time, Han Bing could keep up with Qin Shing. How many roads are there in this mountain area? Where is the nearest and furthest? After running for more than 10 minutes, Qin Shing asked in a low voice. He did not dare to move forward blindly. At this time, returning to the city was the safest. He was already ready to contact the friend that Jiang Xianbang had told him about. Han Bing was not sure herself. She took out her phone number and found that there was still signal. Fortunately, this was not deep in the mountain area. After locating the location, she said, "There are roads in the east, west, and north. The one in the north and east is the Lianhua Highway, and the one in the west and south is the tourist route connecting Meiji Mountain Grotto and Jingtu Temple." Which is the nearest? Qin Shing continued to ask. Han Bing passed the phone to Qin Shing and said, "The highway in the east." Qin Shing frowned and said, "Let's go to the Lianhua Highway and find a way to jump over it. It would be best if we can stop a car. If not, I'll think of another way. It's best not to trust outsiders." Han Bing agreed with Qin Shing's decision. At this moment, she would believe whatever Qin Shing said. This was her last amulet. At the place where Chen Bei Ming and Old Wu were killed, the group of men searched everywhere but found no trace of Han Bing. The leader of the group cursed, "What the hell are you guys doing? How could you let her escape when there are so many of you?" "Boss, we all thought that they were all here. We didn't expect to be tricked," said one of his subordinates. The middle-aged man cursed loudly. "Damn it! Where can we find them in such a big mountainous area? We took the money, we can't just not do something, right? F***ck. Boss, let's think of something else," one of his subordinates suggested. Another subordinate ran over and said, "Boss, Brother Han said that the police have been dispatched. Someone must have called the police." "Damn it, hurry up and deal with the corpses. Once you're done, hurry up and leave," the middle-aged man cursed. The others hurried to clean up the mess. Qin Shing and Han Bing did not know how long they had been running. At this moment, they were already exhausted. Finally, they flipped onto the Lianhua Expressway. On this main expressway in the northwest, there was a lot of traffic. However, no one stopped for a long time. In the end, Qin Shing and Han Bing were completely enraged. They stood in the middle of the expressway and turned on the flashlight on their mobile phones to stop cars. Finally, they stopped a Toyota Camry. Qin Shing did not dare to go up and say anything. He was afraid that people would think that he was a robber. At this time, Han Bing played her advantage. After all, she was a beauty. Han Bing used the excuse that they were backpackers and found the expressway to stop cars because they were lost. Finally, the two men in the Camry believed her and brought them to the direction of Tianshui City. The two men happened to be going back to Tianshui City. When the Camry was on the road again, Han Bing finally relaxed. Suddenly, she hugged Qin Shing and cried bitterly. She really thought that she would die here. Moreover, she did not know whether Chen Bei Ming and Old Wu were dead or alive. It's okay," Qin Shing comforted Han Bing. He was afraid that the two men in front of him would think that he was a human trafficker. Not long after, Han Bing, who had cried enough, fell asleep leaning against Qin Shing. Her experience during this period of time was completely different from her previous life. How could she adapt to it? After Han Bing fell asleep, Qin Shing took out his mobile phone and dialed the number. Not long after, the call was picked up. Obviously, Jiang Xianbang had given Qin Shing's number to the man. He asked directly, "Is this Qin Shing?" "Uncle Zhao, thank you," Qin Shing said politely. The man was called Zhao Quan. He started his career by doing shady things. Later, he succeeded in clearing his name. Now, he was very powerful in Gansu. Zhao Quan said lightly, "Old Jiang and I have been good friends for many years. You are his godson, so you are also my son. You don't have to be so polite. Godson? Qin Shing cursed Jiang Xianbang in his heart for taking advantage of him. However, he also understood what Jiang Xianbang meant. Only when he was important enough would others pay attention to him. Uncle Zhao, do you know anyone in Tianshui? Zhao Quan was not Jiang Xianbang. Of course, Zhao Quan did not dare to joke around. He knew how to conduct himself. I am in Tianshui. Zhao Quan, who was socializing with the leaders of Tianshui City at Emperor Shi Avenue, said calmly, Old Jiang said that your trip to Tianshui will be dangerous. Coincidentally, I have something to do in Tianshui, so I came here 2 days earlier. Where are you now? I will send someone to pick you up. I encountered something. I am on the Lianhua Expressway. It will probably take me an hour to reach the city, Qin Shing said honestly. Zhao Quan was silent for a moment and said, Okay, go directly to Emperor Shi Garden Hotel. No matter what happens, don't panic. I dare not say that you are in Gansu, but in Tianshui, no one will dare to touch you. Hearing this sentence, whether it was exaggerated or it was really so powerful, at least Qin Shing felt more at ease. He was afraid that this group of people was too powerful. After hanging up the phone, Qin Shing immediately told the 2 men in front of him that he would have to trouble them to send them to the Xiuan Hotel later. He would give them the 500 yuan fare when they arrived. Someone could make the devil push the millstone. 500 yuan was not a lot, but to many ordinary people it was a windfall. The 2 men, who were depressed about their bad luck, immediately smiled and said, No problem. Zhao Quan was not in a hurry to go in. He threw the heads of the leaders on the table and then called Jiang Xianbang to inform him of what had happened. Jiang Xianbang, who was meeting an old man in Xishan, smiled and said, Old Zhao, thank you. I owe you a favor. Let's not talk about this. It's fine as long as my nephew is fine. If something happens to him in my territory, I will not be able to face you. Zhao Quan laughed. After more than an hour, Qin Shing and Han Bing finally arrived at Emperor Shi Garden Hotel in the city. Zhao Quan was not done yet. He asked his confidant to take Qin Shing and Han Bing to have a bath and a meal. He would come over later. As for the Han village, the police had already arrived. Unfortunately, apart from the 2 abandoned cars, they found nothing else, including the Han brothers, Chen Baiming and Old Wu's bodies. Those people seemed to be very good at doing this kind of thing. The police controlled the scene, asked for reinforcements, looked for evidence, and so on. At the same time, they investigated the background of the 2 cars and soon contacted the Han family. The elders of the Han family were shocked and called the Han brothers and Han Bing. Han Bing's phone kept ringing. Qin Shing told her not to worry and to discuss with Zhao Quan later to decide what to do. Half an hour later, Zhao Quan finished his work and came in smelling of alcohol. But he was a good drinker, not to mention that he had his underlings to drink for him. Uncle Zhao. Qin Shing stood up and called out. Zhao Quan looked at Qin Shing and said, Qin Shing, have a seat. We are all on the same side. Tell Uncle Zhao what happened. Before Qin Shing could speak, Zhao Quan saw Han Bing standing beside him. He squinted and stared at her for a few seconds before saying, Are you Han Guoping's daughter? Han Bing was stunned. She did not expect this man to know her. She held Qin Shing's arm and did not know what to do. Uncle Zhao, her name is Han Bing. She is Uncle Han's daughter. Qin Shing explained calmly. Hearing Qin Shing's words, Zhao Quan smiled at Han Bing and said, Don't be afraid. Your father and I are friends. Every time I go to Shanghai, he will take care of me. But why are you 2 together? Sigh. Qin Shing sighed and continued, Uncle Zhao, you may not know this but Uncle Han has passed away. This time, we returned to Tianshui to send him back to his root. This news shocked Zhao Quan. After a long time, he loosened his tie and said, What did you say? Guoping is dead? It's a long story. I will tell you in detail later. But now there is something I need your help with. We don't know if our friend is still alive or not. Qin Shing did not dare to delay and said directly. Go ahead. Zhao Quan waved his hand and gestured for Qin Shing to speak. Therefore, Qin Shing repeated what happened tonight to Zhao Quan. The more Zhao Quan listened, the more he frowned. Those who dared to use a gun must not be simple. When Qin Shing finished, Zhao Quan thought about it and asked, Do you want to keep the peace or let the police investigate? Keeping the peace was to let them return to Shanghai safely and let the things that happened in Tianshui be in the past. This was also beneficial to Zhao Quan, and he would not offend others. If the police were to investigate, it might involve a wide range of people. But they might not be able to find anything, and it would take a long time. Qin Shing looked at Han Bing and wanted to ask for her opinion. Han Bing used her eyes to tell him that everything was up to her. Qin Shing finally decided, let the police investigate. This is the safest way. Secondly, it can also warn them not to act rashly. Okay, I will inform the leaders of the city now. Zhao Quan did not decline and said directly. Qin Shing said thoughtfully, Uncle Zhao, if the other party's background is too deep and it is disadvantageous to you, you don't have to worry about me. Hearing this, Zhao Quan nodded silently. At least it made him feel very comfortable. Qin Shing quickly said, Uncle Zhao, if it is possible, can you use your own connections to investigate who did this tonight? As long as you find out who it is, leave the rest to me. Actually, Qin Shing did not want to say this because it was too abrupt and a little too much. But what he wanted to know the most was who wanted Han Bing's life in Shanghai. After all, what happened tonight had completely infuriated him. Even if Han Bing did not pursue the matter, he would not stop until he was dead. Chapter 22. I've been waiting for you. Many people said that you would never know which would come first, an accident or tomorrow. Accidents were indeed scary, but what was scarier than accidents were people's hearts and conspiracies. You had tried your best and fought back, but the result was still not what you wanted. However, Qin Shing just wanted to fight with his own strength. Just like what he had said, no one was a deity or a Buddha, and no one's life was invincible. Even if he lost, he had to lose with integrity and dignity. Zhao Quan quickly contacted the leaders of Tianshui City and the Tianshui police. They were shocked by what happened that night, so they immediately set up a special task force to investigate the case. Soon, the Public Security Bureau sent a few police officers to Xiuan Hotel to record the statements of Qin Shing and Han Bing. They also expanded the search area according to what Qin Shing and Han Bing said. The people in Han Village also knew that something had happened on the road, especially that Han Bing's cousins were missing. It was already 3:00 in the morning when everything was done. After sending the relatives of the Han family, Han Bing was finally exhausted. Qin Shing knew that Han Bing was relying on him at this moment, so he said softly, "Sleep for a while, I'll sit in the living room. Call me if you need anything." Han Bing did not know why, but she slowly walked over and hugged him tightly under Qin Shing's puzzled gaze. Qin Shing could almost feel the softness of Han Bing's chest and the fragrance on her body. But at this time, he had no time to think about these things. "Don't leave me at any time, okay?" Han Bing was like a little girl who had been awakened from a nightmare, trembling as she said. All the things that she had experienced during this period of time had put too much pressure on her, and she could collapse at any time. Qin Shing hugged her waist and stroked her back gently, saying, "Don't worry, I won't." When Han Bing fell asleep, Qin Shing came out of the bedroom and sat in the living room outside, smoking. Chen Bei Ming and Old Wu were missing. Even if he went back from Tianshui, there were still many unknown dangers in Shanghai. But he had no one by his side. He needed at least two people that he absolutely trusted. Zhongnan Mountains. Qin Shing subconsciously thought of that place. Early in the morning, after Zhao Quan had arranged everything, he left Tianshui and returned to Lanzhou. After all, he was a busy man and would not stay in Tianshui with Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng and Han Bing cooperated with the police and returned to the scene of the incident last night. The two cars that they were in had already been driven away. However, there was still no news of Chen Baiming, Old Wu and the rest. The police brought them to the place where the fight took place. Everything matched what Qin Sheng and Han Bing had said. When they saw a few pools of blood that had already coagulated, Qin Sheng and Han Bing had already thought of the worst. The relatives of the Han family had some influence in Tianshui. He told them to think of a solution and to contact Han Bing immediately if there was any news. In the afternoon, Qin Sheng and Han Bing finished all the work on the police side. After confirming that they could leave Tianshui, they directly took the Gulfstream G450 back to Shanghai. In Shanghai, Zheng Ping and Zhao Dongxing had been constantly calling Han Bing to come back and take charge of the situation. Otherwise, such a big company would not be able to survive. Chen Baiming and Old Wu were not around, so Qin Sheng had to accompany Han Bing. However, before he left Tianshui, he had already called his best friend, Hao Lei. Hao Lei had joined the army after graduating from high school and had just been demobilized this year. According to Lao Meng, Hao Lei was a scout and had received 2 second-class merit. He had been selected to join the special forces, but he took the initiative to ask to be demobilized. After being demobilized, he had been staying at home and did not go out to look for a job. Qin Sheng casually asked, "Since you don't want to stay in Xi'an, would you like to come to Shanghai?" Unexpectedly, Hao Lei agreed immediately. He said that he had nothing to do anyway, so he would go to Shanghai to have a look. If there was a chance, he could stay, and if he was not used to it, he could come back. Needless to say, Qin Sheng and Hao Lei's relationship was very good. With Hao Lei by his side, Qin Sheng could rest assured. However, Qin Sheng quickly gave Hao Lei a task, which was to go to Zhongnan Mountains to ask for help from an old man. Qin Sheng had told Hao Lei everything that needed to be said. As for the location of the old man in Zhongnan Mountains, Qin Sheng also gave him a rough location. Unless the old man had already left Zhongnan Mountains. After Hao Lei hung up the phone, he drove straight to Zhongnan Mountains. When the Gulfstream G450 arrived in Shanghai, it was exactly 6:00 at night. It was already dark in Shanghai. Qin Sheng did not trust anyone from the Han family, so he asked Jiang Xianbang for help and asked him to send them directly to Huarun 9 Mile Bund instead of Thompson Golf Villa. From the moment the plane landed at Pudong Airport, Qin Sheng knew that he had to be careful with every step he took. He could not make any mistakes, or he would fall into the abyss. In order to protect Han Bing, Old Wu and Chen Baiming might have sacrificed their lives. Therefore, Qin Sheng had to ensure Han Bing's safety no matter what. Shanghai and Han Village were worlds apart. After staying in Han Village for a few days, Qin Sheng was a little dazed when he suddenly returned to this bustling metropolis. Han Bing, who was sitting beside him, had already fallen asleep while leaning on Qin Sheng's shoulder. Qin Sheng was thinking about how to face everything that was about to happen, and whether the old man in Zhongnan Mountains would agree to help. In fact, Qin Sheng was not sure, but no matter what, he had to bite the bullet and continue moving forward. When they returned to Huarun 9 Mile Bund, Qin Sheng sent Han Bing home and said softly, "Take a shower and have a good sleep." "Are you leaving?" Han Bing asked nervously. Qin Sheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. "No, even if you chase me away now, I won't leave. But we're a man and a woman, aren't you afraid that I'll do something to you?" "You're not that kind of person." Han Bing stared at Qin Sheng with a pitiful look. Qin Sheng was really not in the mood to bicker with Han Bing. Moreover, the atmosphere was really not suitable. He just patted her shoulder and said, "Go in and sleep." Han Bing nodded and went back to the bedroom. She took a shower and went straight to sleep. She was really a little tired, and did not want to think about anything else. After Han Bing fell asleep, Qin Sheng waited for Jiang Xianbang in the living room. Half an hour later, Qin Sheng went downstairs to pick up Jiang Xianbang. The two of them did not enter Han Bing's house, but smoked and chatted at the stairs. Jiang Xianbang's bodyguards were guarding Han Bing's house. "Sai, you're really lucky. I was really afraid that you wouldn't come back," Jiang Xianbang said helplessly as he smoked the Shangshi good cat that Qin Sheng handed to him. "Those who deserve to die can't live, those who deserve to live can't die either." Qin Sheng's mood was a little gloomy. Han Guoping was dead, and now even the Han family's biggest protection, Chen Bei-ming and Old Wu, were missing. The speed at which the Han family was being destroyed was really shocking. Only Han Bing was left. Could she hold on? "I told you not to get involved in this mess, but you just didn't listen," Jiang Xianbang said resentfully. Qin Sheng sighed and said, "Even if I want to leave now, I can't." "Tell me, what do you plan to do?" Jiang Xianbang really did not know what Qin Sheng could do. Facing both internal and external troubles, it was hard for him to hold the fort alone. "We'll see. I've asked 2 friends from Xi'an to help. I can't handle these things alone. When Han Bing wakes up, I'll have a good talk with her and see what she's thinking. I'll make a decision after that," Qin Sheng said thoughtfully. Jiang Xianbang pointed at Qin Sheng and said, I really don't know what to do with you. I've told Zhao Quan and Tianshui, you don't have to worry about the rest. If you really need help in Shanghai, don't be shy. Anyway, I've offended a lot of people, so it doesn't matter if I offend a few more. They can't do anything to me, so you don't have to die on the street." "Ha, thank you, Uncle Jiang. I was waiting for you to say that," Qin Sheng said shamelessly. Jiang Xianbang stood up and said, "All right, I'm going back. You handle the other things yourself." After Jiang Xianbang left, Qin Sheng returned to the living room again. He was still waiting for Hao Lei's news. Regardless of whether Hao Lei could succeed or not, Hao Lei had to rush to Shanghai at noon tomorrow. Every day that he delayed meant one more day of danger. After Hao Lei hung up the phone with Qin Sheng, he drove straight to Zhongnan Mountains. The place was really hard to find. In the end, he could only park his car by the roadside and walk to the thatched cottage where the old man lived. Hao Lei followed the route that Qin Sheng said and searched for nearly 2 hours. His shoes were almost worn out and he finally found the place. It was located halfway up the mountain, and there was only a stone path leading to it. There were 3 primitive thatched cottages and a fenced yard. There were a few trees and a few vegetable fields in the yard. Hao Lei had only heard that there were many reclusive masters living in Zhongnan Mountains, but today was the first time he saw them. This feeling made him feel like he had returned to the farming culture of the past. "Is anyone there?" Hao Lei shouted loudly. From the outside, he could see that there was a withered yellow light coming from the window of the thatched cottage in the middle. It was not the light from a light bulb, but from a bonfire or kerosene lamp. Hao Lei shouted a few times, but there was still no response. In this deep mountain forest, coupled with the sounds of all kinds of wild beasts, it really made people feel very creepy. If it were not for Hao Lei's strong mental strength, ordinary people would have been scared away long ago. He slowly approached the thatched cottage, his whole body tensed up, ready to deal with any sudden crisis. Finally, he pushed open the old wooden door. The door bolt looked like an antique. After an ear-piercing squeak, the door was finally pushed open. At this time, suddenly, someone said, "Isn't it a pleasure to have a friend from afar?" The voice was low and hoarse, like the last words of an old man who was about to be buried, shouting with his last strength. It scared Hao Lei so much that his legs became weak. He walked in shakily, and only then did he get a clear look at the situation inside. An old man dressed in a gray robe was sitting cross-legged on a brick bed, meditating. A pot of fragrant tea was boiling on the fire beside him. There were only a few wooden furnishings in the room, and Hao Lei felt like he had traveled to another world. "Old man, do you know Qin Sheng? He was the one who asked me to find you," Hao Lei said carefully. The old man had long hair like a Taoist priest, and his hair was already pure white. In addition, his face was full of wrinkles, and no one would doubt that he was a real reclusive master. Hao Lei felt that this old man had a strong aura, which made him feel uncomfortable all over. Fate comes and goes, there is no cause and no effect. I have been waiting for you, the old man said again, but still did not open his eyes. Chapter 23. 30% strength, please collect, please give me some monthly tickets. In Zhongnan Mountains, whether it was Qin Sheng or Hao Lei, they might not be able to tell who were the real masters of self-cultivation and who were just ordinary people who went with the flow. But Qin Sheng's grandfather could tell at a glance. The hermits that he had brought Qin Sheng to meet since he was young were all really powerful figures. Therefore, after Qin Sheng got into trouble, he immediately thought of Zhongnan Mountains. He quickly sorted out the people who could help him based on their strength, temperament, friendship, and so on. This old man was the first choice, because Qin Sheng knew that the old man had a few powerful disciples. His grandfather also said that his attainments in martial arts were at the level of a true grandmaster. It was the first time that Hao Lei had met such a person. He did not dare to be rash. He continued, "Old man, Qin Sheng is in trouble. I need your help. I haven't seen my old friend for 2 years. How is Sheng'er?" The old man finally opened his eyes and stared at Hao Lei. That kind of look was so breathtaking in the dim thatched cottage. It seemed that it had locked on Hao Lei. Hao Lei did not dare to look at the old man. He lowered his head and said, "Old man, Qin Sheng has just arrived in Shanghai. His life may be in danger." The old man frowned slightly and said, "Remember this number. Go find him and tell him that I want him to go to Shanghai." Then the old man slowly said a string of phone numbers. Hao Lei quickly took out his phone and wrote it down. This made him feel like modern life. Otherwise, he would always feel weird. "Okay, you can go now. When you see Sheng'er, tell him not to forget to come back often to see his grandfather," the old man said casually. Then he waved his hand and closed his eyes again to continue meditating. Hao Lei slightly bowed to the old man and then left the thatched cottage. After walking out of the yard, he immediately ran away. He really did not want to stay a second longer. After leaving Zhongnan Mountains, Hao Lei wanted to call Qin Sheng. But in the end, he felt that he should find that man first. So he decisively dialed that number. After a while, the phone was connected. A very polite voice came from the other side. "Oh, are you Brother Wang's friend? I've already arranged a private room for you. Are you here? I'll come down to pick you up." "I'm not Brother Wang's friend." Hearing this, Hao Lei felt that it was so familiar. The other side was still polite. "Oh, you are not Brother Wang's friend. Then who are you?" "Your master asked me to look for you," Hao Lei said straightforwardly to avoid any further misunderstandings. After hearing Hao Lei's words, the person on the other end of the line was stunned. There was no sound for a few seconds. Hao Lei continued to ask, "Excuse me, where are you? Are you in Xi'an? Where can I find you?" After about 2 or 3 minutes, the person on the other side finally said, "West Street, formerly known as Capital 1, now known as Capital 7. Do you know?" However, this voice was no longer as passionate as before. It was extremely cold. "I know." Hao Lei smiled awkwardly. No wonder the man's voice sounded so familiar. It turned out that he was from the club. The 7th Congress was one of the most high-end nightclubs in Xi'an. Most people knew about it even if they had never been there. West Street was the entertainment street of Xi'an at night. From Guangji Street to Kaiziku, plus the Pink Alley in the south, there were more than 10 nightclubs and nightclubs. The 7th Congress was at the edge of Kaiziku. At night, business was booming. Chang Baji, who had just reached 40 years old, was the security manager of this nightclub. He had been here for 4 to 5 years. He was amiable and did not put on airs. Whether it was ordinary staff, security guards or waitresses, they all called him Brother Chang. It was said that he had saved the life of the big boss behind the scenes. The big boss had always wanted to promote him, but he felt that it was good for him to stay here. Therefore, no one in the entire 7th Congress dared not to give him face. Chang Baji was not tall, only a little more than 1.7 meters. However, his body was well proportioned. It was just that his face was disappointing. He often mocked himself for being born at a time when he was ugly. He could not blame anyone for being ugly. In addition, his hair was combed into a 2.8 hairstyle, and he had used God knows how much hair gel on his head. It was really 2F** king eye piercing. However, he was easygoing and could chat with anyone. No matter who was in trouble, he would help them. However, if they really provoked him, everyone knew what the consequences would be. The most important thing was that the big boss trusted him, so no one dared to do anything to him. Therefore, whether it was some female staff or waitresses, they could not help but be attracted to him like moths to a flame. Moreover, with his position in the 7th Congress, he could easily have sex with anyone he wanted. However, Chang Baji's bottom line was to keep a distance from these women. From the beginning until now, there had been no romantic relationship between him and these women. "Brother Chang, you are handsome again tonight." When Chang Baji received a call from Hao Lei and was about to leave, a waitress who had just returned from sending a customer winked at him and swayed her hips coquettishly. Chang Baji walked over and slapped her butt. Yeah, which boss Shun of yours didn't come to support us tonight? What time is it now?" "He called me and said he would be arriving soon. Brother Shun said he would treat you to dinner when he is free," the beauty called Ye said coquettishly. Chang Baji replied with a smile, "Okay, anytime." Along the way, whether it was an ordinary employee or a young lady, they all greeted Chang Baji politely or teased him a little. Chang Baji greeted everyone with a smile. Although he was ugly, his popularity was really good. At the entrance of the 7th Congress, Hao Lei parked his car by the roadside. He did not go in. He stood at the entrance and smoked. Several security guards were staring at him, afraid that he would do something out of line. When Chang Baji came out, several security guards bowed and ran over to greet him. Chang Baji threw a box of Yellow Crane Tower 1916 to his buddies. The security guards laughed and joked. Chang Baji had already noticed Hao Lei. After all, he was the only one at the entrance. He walked over slowly, squinted and asked, "Are you Hao Lei?" Hao Lei nodded. When he was on the phone just now, he already knew that the man's name was Chang Baji. This name was unique, but he did not expect it to be a middle-aged man instead of a young man. Chang Baji looked too old, which was why Hao Lei had misunderstood him. When the security guards saw that he was Brother Chang's friend, they dismissed the alarm and left. "Have you met my master?" Chang Baji asked calmly without a smile on his face. To be honest, Hao Lei thought that the old immortal's disciple would also look like a master. He did not expect that he would be so vulgar, completely different from the old immortal. Moreover, he was working in such a place which was somewhat disdainful. With his old appearance, how could he help Qin Xing in Shanghai? "Yes," Hao Lei said disapprovingly. Chang Baji lit a cigarette, touched his dry hair and asked, "What's the matter?" "Say it, I'm busy." Chang Baji looked down on Hao Lei, and Hao Lei also looked down on Chang Baji. The atmosphere was a little stiff. "Your master wants you to go to Shanghai with me," Hao Lei said arrogantly. Chang Baji stared at Hao Lei with his small eyes and said, "Why?" "Qin Sheng is in danger in Shanghai. Your master wants you to go and help him," Hao Lei said casually as he flicked the cigarette ash. "Qin Sheng? Old Master Qin's grandson?" After hearing this name, Chang Baji pondered for a few seconds and then remembered that he knew something about the old master. He was a master that even his master had to be respectful to. However, now his master wanted him to go to Shanghai to help a brat who was still wet behind the ears. This was somewhat unacceptable to him, not to mention that he had to give up everything in Xi'an. Hao Lei still said in the same casual tone, "Yes." Chang Baji suddenly sneered and said, "You look down on me?" Hao Lei's face changed slightly, but he did not say anything. "Have you been a soldier?" Chang Baji could tell from Hao Lei's standing posture that he had definitely been a soldier. Hao Lei snorted and said, "Does it matter? Then let me see what you're capable of." Chang Baji's smile suddenly became wider, and it was even more terrifying and strange. After saying this, he directly made a move to test Hao Lei. He went straight to Hao Lei's neck with one hand. Obviously, he wanted to subdue Hao Lei's throat with one move. However, Hao Lei was after all a sharp knife in the army's reconnaissance battalion and had been selected into the special forces. If he was subdued so easily, it would be really embarrassing. Hao Lei did not expect Chang Baji to suddenly make a move. In a panic, he took a few steps back and punched at Chang Baji's arm at the same time. Chang Baji smiled and dodged to the side. Then he moved forward and hit Hao Lei's chest with his elbow. At this time, Hao Lei had already calmed down. He calmly blocked Chang Baji's elbow with both hands, and then without hesitation, he counterattacked with a whip kick to Chang Baji's back. The two people who were chatting suddenly started fighting, which surprised the security guards of Congress No. 7. They immediately surrounded them. No matter what, Chang Baji was a senior member of Congress No. 7. Of course, they had to help Chang Baji. However, they could not get close to them at all. Both of them were not ordinary people. Chang Baji's fighting skills were needless to say. The security guards had never seen him fight. If someone really drank too much and caused trouble, he would not be needed. They only heard that he had helped their boss to deal with a few people. When he fought, he hurt people. No one could subdue him. It was just that he always chose to keep a low profile. At this time, it was the first time for them to see Chang Baji fight. Moreover, he met a good opponent. The way the two of them fought like a raging fire really opened their eyes to the world. At the beginning, Chang Baji was just testing Hao Lei's strength. After knowing Hao Lei's strength, he finally started to treat him seriously. After Hao Lei's kick, Chang Baji took 2 steps back and directly reached out to grab Hao Lei's ankle. Then he kicked Hao Lei's other calf. He was so powerful that Hao Lei directly bent over in pain. Chang Baji dodged Hao Lei's random punches and grabbed his collar at lightning speed. Before Hao Lei could come back to his senses, he directly threw him out and hit a Qian. At this time, Hao Lei finally understood that this man in front of him was actually a master who pretended to be weak. He could not blame others, who asked him to look down on him, thinking that he was an old man, who knew that he would be beaten up by him. After coming back to his senses, Hao Lei felt that he was really a little stupid. After all, Chang Baji was the disciple of that old immortal. How could he be useless? Otherwise, that old immortal would not have asked him to go to Shanghai to help Qin Sheng. After Hao Lei was thrown out, a group of security guards wanted to kick him when he was down. However, they were stopped by Chang Baji. He slowly walked over and took the initiative to reach out his hand to help Hao Lei up. Hao Lei did not refuse and accepted the olive branch wholeheartedly. However, he was somewhat embarrassed. After all, he was a master in the army who defeated everyone in the camp. Chang Baji did not want to talk nonsense with Hao Lei and asked directly, "When are you leaving?" Hao Lei rubbed his sore calf and said, "Send me your ID card later. I will help you buy a plane ticket. See you at the airport tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Okay, see you at the airport at 10 o'clock. After saying this, Chang Baji did not care about Hao Lei anymore. He turned around and went back to Congress No. 7, leaving Hao Lei in a state of confusion, because he knew that Chang Baji might have only used 30% of his strength. Chapter 24. I am not reconciled. Hao Lei was really convinced this time. He did not expect that Chang Baji, who hid in such a place, was actually such a powerful master. But why did he condescend to stay here? With his strength, he could make a name for himself no matter where he went. Hao Lei didn't understand. Perhaps people like them didn't live in the same spiritual world as ordinary people. If he tried to understand them with the eyes of ordinary people, he wouldn't understand. Anyway, Chang Baji had beaten him into submission. Hao Lei was also a straightforward person. If he did not like someone, he would not like that person. However, if he really acknowledged that person, he would definitely treat that person as a friend, instead of acting outwardly against him. That was why he could be so close to Qin Sheng. After returning to the car, Hao Lei called Qin Sheng and told him everything that had happened today, including that he had met the old immortal. The old immortal had asked his disciple to go to Shanghai. This disciple was called Chang Baji, who worked in the No. 7 Parliament. He had extraordinary skills and defeated Hao Lei. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. I made you suffer. Let's not talk about this. Who asked me to be so cheap? I have gained some intelligence after suffering. Hao Lei laughed and left Xi'an for Shanghai. Hao Lei was looking forward to what he could do in Shanghai. Qin Sheng said, I will not pick you up tomorrow. I will send a car to pick you up. We will talk about the details when you arrive. After hanging up the phone, Qin Sheng let out a long sigh. He was finally relieved. According to Hao Lei's description of Chang Baji, Qin Sheng knew that Chang Baji was definitely much more powerful than him. After all, he was trained by the old man. It seemed that they had met twice when they were young. They had not seen each other since then. He was looking forward to Chang Baji's amazing performance. In the dead of night, the lights in Pudong gradually dimmed. Qin Sheng was squinting on the sofa. He was not sleepy and was afraid that someone would wake him up. Suddenly, the lights in the living room were turned on. Qin Sheng was not used to the dazzling light. He opened his eyes in a daze and found that it was Han Bing coming out of the bedroom. Why are you up? Qin Sheng got up and asked in confusion. Han Bing was only wearing gray silk pajamas, revealing her snow-white neck and legs. Her chest was faintly discernible. She slowly walked to the side and sat down, saying, I can't sleep anymore, I miss my dad. Qin Sheng did not know how to comfort her. After all, Han Bing had been living under Han Guoping's protection. After a moment of silence, Qin Sheng said reluctantly, There's something I want to talk to you about. Although I think it's not the right time, I still have to say it. Han Bing did not feel that there was anything wrong with her dressing like this. Maybe she trusted Qin Sheng too much. If it was someone else, a man and a woman being alone in a room would be like dry wood meeting a raging fire. Their blood would have long been boiling. However, Qin Sheng really could not take advantage of her. He was not an animal that thought with the lower half of his body. Go ahead. Han Bing looked at Qin Sheng gently. Qin Sheng got up and poured a glass of water for Han Bing. He did not sit down. Instead, he stood by the bed and said meaningfully, Han Bing, you must know what kind of situation we are in now. Why do people want to kill you? Whether it's Uncle Han's group of elders or his enemies, it's because the most fundamental purpose is the mess that Uncle Han left behind. Although no one is cleaning up the mess now, everyone knows that it's a fat piece of meat. Everyone has their eyes on this fat piece of meat. You are Uncle Han's only heir. As long as you are here, it will be difficult for them to get it. Qin Sheng, I know. Just say what you want to say. I understand all these. After all, Han Bing had studied at Cambridge University and the Royal Academy of Arts in England. Her IQ was not lower than anyone else's. Even if she did not come into contact with these things, she must have learned a lot from Han Guoping. Qin Sheng turned around and stared at Han Bing. Now there are two paths in front of us. First, you take over Uncle Han's business. No matter good or bad, you have to continue doing it. However, we have to face many opponents. Old Wu and Chen Beiming have already paid with their lives for this. Next, there may be more people who will be in trouble. You will also be in danger. Second, you give up everything and directly announce the bankruptcy and restructuring of the entire company as the heir. You will leave this circle and let them fight for what they want with their own abilities. These two paths, which one will you choose? Which one do you think I will choose, or which one do you suggest me to choose? Han Bing said emotionlessly. Qin Sheng shook his head and smiled. Han Bing, you decide what you think. Some people are willing to live a simple life, while others will live a tiring life. But don't let yourself be wronged, especially you now, because no one will feel sorry for you. No matter what choice you make, I will support you without hesitation. If you choose the first path, then I will shield you from the storm. Whoever dares to touch you, I will dare to kill them. If you choose the second path, I will help you handle everything, so that you can have a peaceful and stable life. Qin Sheng, why are you so good to me? Qin Sheng's words touched Han Bing. She did not answer his question, but asked softly. This made Qin Sheng a little at a loss. After a few seconds he said, I am not good to you. After Uncle Han died, I only promised him, so I have to protect you. As for now, no matter what purpose I have, I can't just sit back and do nothing. I choose the first path, but I am a little unwilling. Han Bing was a little disappointed, but she knew that this was Qin Sheng's truth. She knew that although she was very beautiful, people like Qin Sheng had a kind of charm that came from the inside out. There must be a lot of beauties around him, so he would not fall in love with her so easily. Qin Sheng could understand why Han Bing chose the first path, because she was not the kind of woman with ambition and courage. She did not want to live that kind of life because it would cost her a lot and she would give up a lot of things. It would be very tiring, but she was unwilling. What did this mean? Why are you unwilling? Qin Sheng asked. Han Bing said with red eyes, It is not that I am unwilling to not be able to protect my father's family business, it is useless to me. What I am unwilling is that if Grandpa Wu and Dark North die, I do not have the ability to take revenge for them. They all died for me. At the end, Han Bing could not stop her tears. Qin Sheng walked over and reached out to wipe away Han Bing's tears. He said word by word, Silly girl, don't worry. You can't take revenge, I will take revenge for you. After talking about what needed to be said, Qin Sheng comforted Han Bing and went back to rest. He was really a little sleepy, so he fell on the sofa and slept until the next morning. Originally, Han Bing was going to the company for a board meeting in the morning, but Qin Sheng delayed it to the afternoon. He wanted to wait until Hao Lei and Chang Baji arrived in Shanghai. In the morning, Han Bing had been answering phone calls, not only from Han Guoping's confidants, but also from her own design company. Qin Sheng was reading in the living room. They ordered takeout for lunch. This time, Han Bing did not say that the food was junk food. It seemed that in an instant she had grown up, and her stubbornness had disappeared. When the Han family's driver picked up Hao Lei and Chang Baji, Qin Sheng and Han Bing went out. They went back to Thompson Golf Villa first. Without Han Bing at home, the Han family was already in chaos. Half an hour later, Hao Lei and Chang Baji finally arrived. Qin Sheng. After Hao Lei saw Qin Sheng, he gave him a big hug. He had a lot of doubts in his heart, such as the bends that picked them up and the big villa in front of him. It should be known that this was Pudong, where every inch of land was worth an inch of gold. After greeting Hao Lei, Qin Sheng slowly walked forward and faced Chang Baji. He slightly lowered his head and stretched out his hand, smiling, Brother Chang, welcome to Shanghai. From the moment he entered the door, Chang Baji used his small eyes to look at everyone present. Finally, his attention was focused on Qin Sheng and Han Bing. He laughed and said, The last time I saw you, you were still in junior high. I did not expect that you have grown up in the blink of an eye. Time really flies. I did not expect Brother Chang to remember me. Qin Sheng was more or less surprised. If this was the case, there would be fewer barriers between the two when they communicated. I have a good memory, Chang Baji said with a cheeky smile. His attitude made Hao Lei, who was next to him, surprised. Since last night, this man had not been nice to him. Why did he seem to be a different person now? Then, Qin Sheng pulled Han Bing to his side and introduced them to each other. This is my friend, the eldest daughter of the Han family, Han Bing. These two are Hao Lei and Brother Chang. Han Bing took the initiative to shake hands with Hao Lei and Chang Baji. She knew that these were Qin Sheng's friends who came to help, and they were definitely not ordinary people. Han Bing, you go up and change first. I have something to discuss with Brother Chang and Hao Lei, Qin Sheng said in a more euphemistic manner. Han Bing immediately understood what was going on and left the space for Qin Sheng and others. After everyone left, Qin Sheng brought Chang Baji and Hao Lei to the living room and poured tea for them. Then, he sighed and said, Brother Chang, if I had a choice, I would not have disturbed the old master. A few days ago, I went to lie in Tianshui and almost could not come back. My two friends were completely left there. Qin Sheng and Hao Lei were best friends, so there was no need to treat him as an outsider. Moreover, when he called Hao Lei, he had already said what needed to be said. There were many reasons why Hao Lei decided to come to Shanghai, but Chang Baji was different. Qin Sheng, Master asked me to come, and I will come. Why did Master ask me to come? He must have his reasons. Since I'm here, you don't need to explain anything to me. You just need to tell me what I should do. When Chang Baji was doing things, he was never willing to talk too much nonsense. He had a catchphrase, "What's the point of talking so much nonsense?" This was a standard Shaanxi dialect. To put it bluntly, it meant that he didn't want to talk nonsense. Since Chang Baji said so, Qin Sheng did not stand on ceremony. He nodded and said, "Okay, I will tell you the rest slowly. Now, the most important thing for us is to protect Han Bing." Chang Baji and Hao Lei looked at each other and nodded thoughtfully. Next, Qin Sheng arranged tasks for Chang Baji and Hao Lei. From today on, Hao Lei would drive Han Bing and protect her with Chang Baji. Other than that, Chang Baji needed to do some things with Qin Sheng when necessary. Chapter 25. Killing the chicken to scare the monkey. Chang Baji and Hao Lei drove a Mercedes S500 in front, while Qin Sheng drove a Maserati with Han Bing at the back. The three of them had a clear division of labor. No matter what happened, they would try their best to ensure Han Bing's safety. Moreover, this was Shanghai, not Tianshui. No one wanted to make things too big. The Han family's company was in the Zhongyin building at Lujiazui, which was not far from Thompson Gulf. This was Hao Lei's first time in Shanghai, so the bustling Pudong gave him a sense of novelty. He could not help but look at the tall buildings at the traffic lights. However, this was not Chang Baji's first time in Shanghai. He was not interested in these things. He just observed the cars around or behind him to detect unknown dangers. Since he agreed to come to Shanghai, he did not want to embarrass himself. Just as Hao Lei had said, with his skills, he could stand out anywhere. Why would he want to spend his days in a nightclub? Moreover, the big boss behind Congress 7 had always wanted him to stand in front of the stage, but he wasn't interested at all. Why? Because old Master Qin once told him that the first half of his life was bitter. If he did not become a lowly person and hide his identity, he would probably die young. His life was full of bad luck to his parents, bad luck to his wife and children. In the end, he would be alone. If he could survive the first half of his life, starting from 40, he would be rich and have a lot of children and grandchildren. Many people might not believe these things, but Chang Baji really believed it. For example, many people did not believe that there was a person like his master in this world, but Chang Baji had seen it with his own eyes since he was young. Therefore, the first half of Chong Baji's life was a little bitter, but at least he got through it. Not long after his 40th birthday, his master asked him to leave Xi'an and go to Shanghai, which also indicated a lot of things. This was the biggest reason why he came to Shanghai. During the board meeting, just listen to what they have to say. After they have finished speaking, you can directly tell them your decision and leave the rest to me, Qin Shing whispered to Han Bing, who was fidgeting restlessly beside him in the Maserati. Now, Han Bing would do whatever Qin Shing said. She nodded weakly and said, "Don't worry, I know what to do." Han Guoping's company was named after himself. It was called Guoping Holding Group. On the 33rd floor of the Bank of China Tower, all the directors of Guoping Group had gathered in the conference room of Guoping Group. There were no outsiders among the so-called directors. All of them were veterans, confidants, and senior executives of the company who had worked hard with Han Guoping over the years. At this moment, this group of people was led by Xing Ping, Lu Hejun, and Zhao Dongsheng. The three forces were arguing fiercely. Everyone was waiting for Han Bing to come over and make the decision, but no one put Han Bing in their eyes. When the door of the meeting room was pushed open and Han Bing brought Qin Shing and the other two in, everyone quietened down subconsciously. Hao Lei and Chong Baji stood guard at the door of the meeting room. Han Bing slowly sat on the main seat that Han Guoping used to sit on. Qin Shing stood behind her with a cold look on his face. He looked at everyone present viciously, especially Lu Hejun and Zhao Dongsheng. The others were also sizing up Qin Shing and the others. The board meeting was hosted by Xing Ping. Han Bing looked at Xing Ping and nodded slightly. "Let's begin." All sorts of discussions started below. They were all doubting Han Bing's ability. They wondered if she could handle the pressure and take over the mess left by Grandfather Han. Everyone, quiet down. Since Han Bing is here, let's start our meeting now. We don't have an agenda. Just say whatever you want to say. Anyway, we're in a bad situation now. There are a lot of problems. Xing Ping stood up and said loudly to everyone. Han Bing, you're finally back. If you didn't come back, we really didn't know what to do. Many of our places have been sealed by the police. Those people are making trouble. You have to find a way to solve it, Lu Hejun said first. Han Bing did not say anything, Zhao Dongsheng said thoughtfully. A few big banks have decided to withdraw their loans. If it wasn't for me, they would have sued us in court. The tourism project in Chongming Island and the real estate project in Suzhou have been stopped. We need more funds. Han Bing still did not say anything. There are only a few million left in the company's account. The capital chain is broken. If we don't think of a way, we won't even be able to pay this month's salary. Our creditors have been asking me for money every day. I'm going crazy, Xing Ping said. After the leaders of the three forces finished speaking, the others began to talk about the specific problems. The entire conference room was in an uproar. Everyone was pressuring Han Bing. Han Bing clenched her fists and bit her lower lip. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she was still strong. She did not want others to see her weak side. Han Bing, everyone has said so much. Say something. After all, you represent Grandfather Han. Xing Ping could not help but ask when he saw that Han Bing did not say anything. Han Bing laughed at herself. You guys have said so much, but I don't understand anything. What do you think I should do? Xing Ping looked at Zhao Dongsheng and Lu Hejun and looked at each other. He did not know what to say. If he said too much, it would seem like he was bullying Han Bing. Han Bing, it's actually very simple. We are short of money and connections. There are only a few ways to solve this problem. First, dispel the bank's concerns about us. We can't let them withdraw their loans. Once they have made up their minds, they will take drastic measures against us. Second, find a few financial groups with strong backgrounds to invest and optimize the equity structure. Third, sell off the more valuable projects to raise funds and shrink the scope of investment. Fourth, contact a few banks or trust funds to get more funds. Xing Ping did not say anything. Zhao Dongxing did not care about Han Bing's feelings and said directly. Han Bing sighed. Uncle Zhao, I know what you're saying, but I don't have the ability. Han Bing, what do you mean by this? You have to think of a way. You can't just watch Master Han's hard-earned foundation collapse just like that. Lu Hejuan's expression changed instantly when he heard this. He immediately stood up and said, Xing Ping could not bear to force Han Bing anymore. He said helplessly, Han Bing, what do you want to do? Han Bing stood up and looked back at Qin Xing. Qin Xing smiled and nodded. She plucked up her courage and said, since it's already like this, I can't change it. Let's go bankrupt and reorganize. Let's part on good terms. What? Bankruptcy and reorganize? This news shocked everyone. This meant that Han Bing was representing the Han family to withdraw. Once the Han family withdrew, everything would be handed over to the creditors. They would not have any say at all. Guoping Group would have to change its name, and might even completely withdraw from the stage of Shanghai. Han Bing, this is Grandfather Han's life's work. Why are you doing this? Bankruptcy and reorganize. What should we do? I don't agree. We definitely don't agree. This news completely blew up the whole meeting room. Everyone expressed their opinions, but there was only one goal, which was to disagree. The windows of the meeting room were huge floor-to-ceiling windows. Outside was the bustling Pudong financial district. Sunlight shone through the windows into the meeting room. Inside there was a battle of wit. Light and darkness were so close. Han Bing's task had been completed. Now it was Qin Xing's turn. Qin Xing slowly walked forward and stood beside Han Bing. He shouted with all his might, "Shut up!" This sentence drowned out the voices of all the people present. Everyone was stunned and looked at Qin Xing, who had appeared out of nowhere. Some people had already shouted, "Who do you think you are? Do you think you have the right to speak here?" Qin Xing sneered. I'm nothing, but at least I'm better than a bunch of idiots like you. A bunch of idiots? Do you really think I don't know what you're thinking? All of you have been following Grandfather Han for so many years. When something happened to Grandfather Han, none of you dared to stand up and take responsibility. All of you have become cowards. Don't tell me that you don't know what happened in Tianshui. You know very well who wanted to kill Han Bing. Old Wu and Chen Bei Ming died to protect Han Bing. I'll remember this. I don't know who did it now, but when I do, you better pray for your own good. Qin Xing's words stunned everyone. You all have wishful thinking. Now that Han Bing is dead, you can reap the benefits and divide up Grandfather Han's lifelong efforts. Don't refute me. If it were me, I would do the same. Why? Are you all very disappointed that Han Bing is not dead? It's just bankruptcy and restructuring, what's there to fuss about? I guess all of you have already thought of a way out. Besides, what you've taken in all these years is enough for you to spend for the rest of your life. I just don't know if you have the life to spend it. Well, I guess some of you have already colluded with Third Master Wu or Zhouwenwu. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the guts to touch Han Bing. If you have the ability, why don't you go and face Third Master Wu and Zhouwenwu? Being scolded by a young man, someone lost his cool and shouted. Third Master Wu, Zhouwenwu, I will naturally think of a way. You don't have to worry about it. Today I will say it here. Bankruptcy and restructuring, Han Bing will give up everything. You can do whatever you want as long as you have the ability to eat it. If anyone dares to touch Han Bing, you can try. I don't believe that you have 9 lives. Threaten us? Do you know what we do? Zhao Dongxing had been listening to Qin Xing's nonsense calmly. However, no matter how calm he was, he could not stand it any more. So he sneered. Qin Xing walked straight to Zhao Dongxing and said, Threaten? No, no, no. This is not a threat. This is a declaration of war. Are you convinced? You can try. I can kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Chapter 26. Taking the Risk. Who was Zhao Dongsheng? He was definitely a ruthless character. Otherwise, how could he have gotten to where he was today, second only to Han Guoping and forcing Lu Hejun and the other elders to retreat? This young man in front of him was really arrogant, or was he a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers? He dared to say such words in front of Zhao Dongsheng. This was not a naked threat, it was an unscrupulous provocation. Lu Hejun and Jing Ping did not speak. Since Zhao Dongsheng was willing to take the lead, then let him be. They stared at Qin Shing thoughtfully. How could they not know about what happened in Tianshui? They were not sure if they were involved. Anyway, Old Man Wu and Chen Beiming were dead, which was very beneficial to them. As for this young man, they were currently investigating him. Unfortunately, there was little information about him. They only knew that he appeared a few days before Han Guoping's death, and had been protecting Han Bing 24/7. After Han Guoping's death, he did not leave her side at all. He also went to Tianshui and came back alive. If not for him, Han Bing might have died in Tianshui. Who was this young man? Did he really not want to live to face Zhao Dongsheng? It was not that he did not want to live, but at this time, he had to do this. To deal with this group of people, you either play tricks or be more ruthless than them. Otherwise, it would only make them worse. Are you afraid of death? Zhao Dongsheng lit a cigarette and blew the smoke on Qin Shing's face. This man was dressed in a suit and leather shoes and looked like an old Shanghai gentleman. He squinted his eyes and said. Qin Shing was not angry. He chuckled and said, "Are you afraid? A tit for tat, who would win? Young man, this is Shanghai. I hope you can still say such words after a period of time." Zhao Dongsheng gritted his teeth. He knew Qin Shing's background and strength. If he wanted to play with him, there would be plenty of opportunities, but not now. He pushed Qin Shing away and slowly stood up. Since Han Bing has decided to go bankrupt and reorganize, then let it be. Let's part on good terms and find our own way out in the future. After saying that, Zhao Dongsheng immediately left. His expression was very ugly. The others didn't dare to say anything. After all, Zhao Dongsheng had already agreed. Even if Zhao Dongsheng didn't agree, the Han family had the absolute right to speak. If they wanted to go bankrupt and reorganize, that would be the only way. The board of directors parted on bad terms. Jing Ping stayed behind to discuss the following matters with Han Bing. For example, Han Bing had to first sign a few documents to inherit Han Guoping's shares, and then contact many creditors. Anyway, there were many things to be done. Qin Shing asked Hao Lei and Chang Baji to stay in the company. He left alone and ran to the National Finance Center, which was not far away. He really needed Jiang Xianbang's help. Qin Shing was sinking deeper and deeper. Jiang Xianbang had no choice but to help. When the secretary brought Qin Shing to the office, Jiang Xianbang said with a gloomy face, "You found a helper?" Qin Shing grinned cheekily and said, "I'm here to drink your pu'er tea. Don't act like I owe you millions. If you owe me millions, I may not take a dime and give you millions for you to spend. But do you think you owe me money?" Jiang Xianbang asked the secretary to make tea. To him, as long as he could get it done with money, it was not a problem. He was afraid that he couldn't get it done with money. This was the most troublesome thing. Qin Shing sat next to Jiang Xianbang and picked up Jiang Xianbang's cigar. He skillfully cut a cigar and lit it. He smiled and said, "My helper has arrived. There was a board meeting today. Han Bing announced the company's bankruptcy and reorganization. You don't know what those people's faces are like. Bankruptcy and reorganization or not, it doesn't affect them at all. They have already gotten what they deserve. It's just more or less. With their status today, who doesn't have a way out? Anyway, Han Guoping has taken care of the big things for them." Jiang Xianbang was used to the ups and downs of these people, so he said disapprovingly. Qin Shing sighed and laughed at himself. "Yes, Uncle Han has taken care of them. Now they still want to divide the Han family. These people are really ambitious. Han Guoping is dead. No matter who it is at this time, they only care about themselves. No one will think about others. If it were me, I would do the same. If someone has a little ambition and wants to go further and climb higher, this is the best time, Jiang Xianbang said in a deep voice. Qin Shing did not deny this. But they could do whatever they wanted. What was the point of bullying a helpless woman? This was something Qin Shing could not tolerate. Uncle Jiang, do you know Third Master Wu? Qin Shing asked with interest. An idea formed in his mind, but it was a little risky. Jiang Xianbang was stunned for a moment when he heard these 3 words. Then he stared at Qin Shing and said, Qin Shing, what do you want to do? I advise you not to mess around. Who do you think Third Master Wu is? If he wants to kill you, he has 10,000 ways. You'd better be honest. Uncle Jiang, I don't mean anything else. I know what I'm capable of. It's okay to play with ordinary people, but playing with Third Master Wu is courting death. I just want you to pass a message to him. He can take whatever he wants from the Han family as long as he lets Han Bing go. After all, Han Guoping is dead. None of this has anything to do with Han Bing. There is no need for him to be calculative with a little girl, Qin Shing said seriously. Jiang Xianbang was slightly relieved. But it was inevitable that Third Master Wu would be disgusted if he passed a message to him. So after thinking for a while, he said, Last time, in order to protect you, I gave Third Master Wu a Yuan Dynasty blue and white flower with a peony cloud and dragon pattern. Do you know how valuable that thing is? This time you want me to pass a message, okay? Just treat it as I have returned all the favor I owed your grandfather. But at least I have to give you an explanation. What explanation? Qin Shing asked confusedly. He did not expect that Jiang Xianbang actually had a collection of Yuan Dynasty blue and white flower. He was indeed an antique master. You have to admit that Han Bing is your girlfriend. Then I can tell him that she is my future daughter-in-law, Jiang Xianbang said thoughtfully. Qin Shing thought it was nothing. Anyway, it was just an explanation. He agreed without hesitation and replied, Okay, you can say whatever you want. Jiang Xianbang gave Qin Shing a hard time and laughed out loud. Qin Shing rolled his eyes at him. Third Master Wu is easy to deal with. Since Han Guoping is dead, I can do him a favor. He may not do anything to Han Bing. But Zhou Wenwu is not simple. He is Han Guoping's enemy. He will definitely not let Han Bing go, Jiang Xianbang said worriedly. Qin Shing asked meaningfully, Uncle Jiang, how is Zhou Wenwu in the bund? To be honest, Zhou Wenwu is not really a big shot. He is almost at the same level as Han Guoping. Compared to Third Master Wu, he is nothing. The real big shots like Third Master Wu in the bund never show their strength. The reason why Han Guoping can be so high is that he has boarded the boat of Jiangsu in recent years. Unfortunately, that big boat sank and he became a victim. It just so happened that he offended Third Master Wu in the past. That's why Third Master Wu hid him when he was down. Jiang Xianbang, a big broker, had a lot of connections and information. No one could compare with him. Since he could make Third Master Wu give him face, how could he be an ordinary person? Qin Shing's expression changed and he said, What if I kill him? Qin Shing, are you crazy? Hearing this, Jiang Xianbang was shocked and said, This is Shanghai, you can't just do whatever you want. What's more, that's Zhou Wenwu, there are other people standing behind him. People like him must have a lot of enemies. As long as I do it secretly, no one will know that I did it. I don't have the strength to play tricks with him, so I can only take the risk out of desperation and cut the Gordian knot, Qin Shing said with reason and evidence. Jiang Xianbang squinted his eyes and pondered. What Qin Shing said was right. If he wanted to protect Han Bing, he had to face Zhou Wenwu. But Zhou Wenwu did not have the same temperament as Third Master Wu. How confident are you? Jiang Xianbang finally gritted his teeth and asked. Qin Shing thought for a moment and said, I've invited an old immortal's disciple from Zhongnan Mountains. His strength is absolutely amazing. If I fight with him, as long as I choose the right opportunity, I will definitely be able to kill him. Zhongnan Mountains? Jiang Xianbang was a little surprised. He did not expect that the two friends Qin Shing mentioned from Xi'an were actually from Zhongnan Mountains. This was a little interesting. If you really want to do this, then give it a try. But be careful. If it really doesn't work, then think of another way. Don't force yourself, Jiang Xianbang said after weighing the pros and cons. This made Qin Shing very surprised. He did not expect Jiang Xianbang to agree just like that. Do you know why? Jiang Xianbang knew from Qin Shing's eyes that he did not understand. Qin Shing frowned and said, Why? Because I got the news that the person who attacked you in Tianshui was Zhou Wenwu. And the person who colluded with Zhou Wenwu was Han Guoping's confidant, Zhao Dongxing. These days they have been very close, Jiang Xianbang explained. Chapter 27. Deja vu. It's the end of the month, please buy some monthly tickets, please buy some collections. Zhao Dongxing, Lu Hejun, Zheng Ping, Han Guoping's triumvirate. Just as Chen Beiming had analyzed, Zheng Ping was a professional manager. He did not have the ambition and skill of Zhao Dongxing and Lu Hejun. His greater ambition was to use the Guoping Group as a platform to realize his life value. That was why Han Guoping trusted him so much and placed him in this important position to maintain his neutrality. However, Zhao Dongxing was different from Lu Hejun. Zhao Dongxing's position was second only to Han Guoping. After Han Guoping's death, he was the most suitable person to take over this position. However, he was too anxious and did not have the ability to face Han Guoping's enemies and opponents. In the end, he could only choose to form an alliance with Zhou Wenwu. This way, not only could he get what he wanted, he could also gain Zhou Wenwu's support and gain a firm foothold in Shanghai. At this time, he definitely would not think about Han Guoping. Even if he died, it would be a completely different matter. However, today's society was no longer the same as before. On the surface, everyone was a businessman and they all used the company as a platform to run their circle. However, after Han Guoping's death, the only person who could inherit his shares was Han Bing. This was the simplest reason. Therefore, he could only get everything smoothly if Han Bing died. Therefore, there was the assassination during the Tianshui trip. Now, Qin Shing finally knew who the culprit of the Tianshui incident was. Just as Chen Beiming had thought, it was either Lu Hejun or Zhao Dongxing. Now that the truth had come to light, it was indeed Zhao Dongxing. 4 people died and their corpses had not been found. He himself almost died. With such deep hatred, how could Qin Shing spare Zhao Dongxing and Zhou Wenwu? Jiang Xianbang knew that Qin Shing really wanted to kill this time. The whole thing was getting more and more complicated. Just as Qin Shing had said, the most direct way was to cut the Gordian knot. Then, the dust would settle on Han Bing's matter. Zhou Wenwu, Zhao Dongxing, very good, Qin Shing said with a bloodthirsty smile. Be careful, don't leave any evidence behind. Unless you don't want to stay in Shanghai anymore, I will plead with Third Master Wu. He is not the kind of person who calculates every little thing. But I guess I will have to bear the pain and cut my own flesh again, Jiang Xianbang said with a long sigh. Qin Shing laughed and said, I don't know how many things you have hidden in your hands. I will find a way to pay you back in the future. There's no need for that. I've already said that I'll repay all the favors I owe your grandfather. You'd better not come looking for me in the future. We'll mind our own business, said Jiang Xianbang helplessly. Qin Shing knew that Jiang Xianbang was just joking. Without his grandfather's guidance, he might not be able to lead such a carefree life. After leaving Jiang Xianbang's company, Qin Shing went to the underground garage to get his car. Sitting in the car, he was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he lit a cigarette. It had been a long time since he had the intention to kill. Killing someone was just a matter of nodding to the ground. However, it was indeed a little difficult to do it without leaving any evidence. It depended on whether Zhao Dongxing and Zhou Wenwu would give him the chance. Just as Qin Sheng was about to drive away, a group of people suddenly came out of the elevator next to him. It was a little big. Several men in suits and leather shoes and a few white-collar workers in business attire surrounded a long-haired woman in the middle. The woman was more than 1.7 meters tall. With the addition of high heels, she stood out in the crowd. She only had simple makeup on, but her temperament was unparalleled. Qin Sheng kept staring at the woman. Unfortunately, he could only see the side of her face. Even so, Qin Sheng was quite shocked. This figure seemed a little familiar. It couldn't be such a coincidence. How could he meet her here? Before Qin Sheng could come back to his senses, a motorcade consisting of Bentley and Mercedes-Benz arrived. Everyone quickly got into the car and left. Qin Sheng hurriedly followed them. He wanted to confirm if it was her. Unfortunately, after leaving the National Financial Center, he did not have a chance to overtake them. By the time he reached the traffic light, the motorcade had already left and he was stuck at the back. Qin Sheng was a little annoyed. After a while, he smiled bitterly. Maybe he had recognized the wrong person. After all, in the vast sea of people, they just passed by each other in a hurry. Although they had a good chat and were like-minded, they did not have much interaction. They just said that they would meet again if fate allowed it. Qin Sheng took out his phone and subconsciously wanted to call the number that he missed so much. After hesitating for a while, he finally gave up. At this moment, where are you and what are you doing? After the traffic light, Qin Sheng was ready to return to Zhongyin Tower. It was almost time to get off work. However, he did not expect that while he was chasing someone was also following him. Qin Sheng purposely took a few rounds. After confirming that the target of the Highlander was him, he sneered and continued to head to the National Financial Center. It was obvious that it was Zhou Wenwu and Zhao Dongxing's men. In Zhongyin Tower, Guoping Group, Han Bing was still busy. Hao Lei and Chang Baji were waiting in the lounge next to her. After the meeting, Zheng Ping tried to persuade Han Bing, but she had already made up her mind. He had no choice but to follow the procedure. Zheng Ping's intention was good. He wanted to inherit Han Guoping's business and continue to develop. However, he did not know about Han Bing's situation and the internal and external troubles of Guoping Group. Not finished yet? When Qin Sheng returned to the lounge, Hao Lei was almost asleep. However, Chang Baji was reading a magazine with interest. Chang Baji sighed and said, "I think it's still early. Someone was following me just now." Qin Sheng sat beside Chang Baji and passed him a cigarette. Chang Baji was not surprised and said calmly, as expected, "Brother Chang, do you have a wife and children?" Since he had nothing to do, Qin Sheng chatted with Chang Baji for a while. Chang Baji stared at Qin Sheng for a while. Suddenly, he laughed and said, "How could a person like me have a wife and children? I deserve to be alone." Chang Baji seemed to be a contradictory person. Sometimes, he was all smiles and chatting with anyone, but sometimes, he was as calm as still water, making people flinch at the sight of him. He switched back and forth freely between the two, but no one could understand him. "Brother Chang, have you killed anyone before?" Qin Sheng asked calmly. Chang Baji stopped smiling and said playfully, "A man should kill. What do you think? This time we might kill someone. If we are not careful, we might have to run away," Qin Sheng said. After all, it was his first time meeting Chang Baji. He did not know Chang Baji's temper and character, so he was more or less reserved. Chang Baji said calmly, "Master asked me to come to Shanghai to help you. I will do whatever you say. I don't ask for the reason." "Ha ha ha, Brother Chang, don't you feel wronged by following a young man like me?" Qin Sheng continued. Chang Baji shook his head and said disapprovingly, "A man's age is not the age on his ID card. Most men live their whole lives like dogs. I think you are definitely not one of them. As for whether you feel wronged or not, you don't have to say it. Since I met you, I have been rating you. When you can't satisfy me, I will naturally leave after helping you. I like this kind of straightforwardness." Qin Sheng understood what he meant and laughed. Chang Baji said calmly, "That's good." When Han Bing was done with these things, it was already 8 p.m. When she came out with Jing Ping, she was embarrassed and said, "I made you wait for so long." "It's okay. Let's go. I will take you to dinner." Qin Sheng chuckled. Chang Baji and Hao Lei had already stood up. Jing Ping walked over and patted Qin Sheng's shoulder. "Qin Sheng, you are good. I know you are doing it for Han Bing's sake. But I really don't know why you dared to say those words to Zhao Dongxing. But I still want to remind you that Zhao Dongxing is not easy to deal with. You'd better be careful." "Thank you, Mr. Jing," Qin Sheng replied politely. When they came out of Zhongyin Building, Qin Sheng and Han Bing were in the front. Hao Lei and Chang Baji were behind in the Mercedes-Benz. They had already noticed that there was indeed a car following them, and Chang Baji found that there was more than one car. However, they would not give Zhao Dongxing a chance. For dinner, Qin Sheng brought them to his favorite Sichuan restaurant. Last time when he had a gathering with Xia Ding and the others, they basically drank wine. He did not have a good time to reminisce about the taste, so he came here to fulfill his wish. Qin Sheng greeted the boss politely and found a random seat. When the students in the restaurant saw a beauty like Han Bing, their eyes almost popped out. She was a university student, and her hormones were at the peak. Qin Sheng was also like this. "When I was in university, this was the base of our dormitory. We would come here once or twice a week," Qin Sheng explained casually. "Otherwise, everyone would not understand why they came here." Han Bing did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Qin Sheng, don't tell me that you graduated from Fudan University or Shanghai University?" The nearest universities here were Fudan University and Shanghai Institute of Finance and Economic. Tongji University and Shanghai Institute of Physical Education were also nearby, but there was some distance between them. Those who could eat here must be the former two. "Fudan University, Philosophy Department," Qin Sheng said casually. Hao Lei naturally knew Qin Sheng. He was a straight-A student in their school in high school. Many girls even wrote love letters to him. Otherwise, how could he win over the school belle Su Qin? Han Bing said in disbelief, "You actually graduated from Fudan University? I thought you graduated from high school at most." "Damn you, am I so uncultured?" Han Bing's very serious words made them laugh. After all, he did not tell Han Bing about it. Han Bing was also amused by herself. She finally showed a smile that she had not seen for a long time. Qin Sheng also had not seen her smile for a long time. It was the first time for Chang Baji and Hao Lei to see it. They did not expect her to be so beautiful when she smiled. Being stared at by three men, Han Bing was a little embarrassed and lowered her head. In order to ease the atmosphere, Qin Sheng took the initiative to let her order and recommended a few special dishes. Chapter 28. Give Others a Chance. Mount Putuo was located in the Zhoushan archipelago. Together with Mount Wutai, Mount Amei and Mount Zhihua, it was one of the four famous mountains of Buddhism. It was the Taoist field of Guanyin Bodhisattva. There was a saying, "There are famous mountains on the sea, mountains in the illusory world," which referred to Mount Putuo. It was located at the foot of Mount Putuo, facing the sea in the east and enjoying the sunrise. There was a medium-sized yard made of green bricks and gray tiles. The yard was full of flowers and plants. There was a Buddha hall in the side hall. At this moment, an old man over 60 years old, wearing a Buddhist robe, was worshipping the Buddha devoutly. 2 men stood outside the Buddha hall. One was Yang Deng, who had fought with Qin Sheng before. He had recovered these days, but his eyes were a little dim. Next to him was a middle-aged man, who looked calm and kind, with smiling eyes, playing with the Buddha beads in his hand. There were no outsiders in this small yard. There was only one way to get here. There were people guarding the entrance, so outsiders could not get in at all. Apart from the servants in the small yard, there were only the old man and 2 old men. However, there were often guests visiting. The old man would go to the temple to discuss Buddhism with those masters. Every day, apart from worshipping the Buddha and chanting sutras, he would either sleep or wander around the island. What he was most interested in was chatting with the tourists who came because of its fame. He could often meet some interesting people. When the old man came out of the Buddha hall, Yang Deng and the middle-aged man lowered their heads respectfully and said, "Third Master. Little stool, have you recovered from your injury?" The third master shaved his head and kept a long beard. He was a little hunchbacked. Fortunately, his legs were agile. No matter who saw him, they would say that this old man looked like a Buddha. After all, he had devoted himself to Buddhism for so many years. It was said that one's appearance was born from one's heart and would change every 3 years. The old man looked kind, but the momentum in his movements was really frightening. Feeling somewhat ashamed, Yang Deng said, "Third Master, I'm not as good as you. I've made you lose face. I'm willing to accept the punishment without any complaint. Han Guoping is dead, so this matter is over. There's always someone better than you, so it's not necessarily a bad thing to suffer a little. Everyone has to slowly climb up after stumbling. No one can soar to the sky in one go. Otherwise, they will only fall even more miserably," the old man said with a smile. His smile was very amiable. The children who often saw him in the neighborhood would happily call him Grandpa Wu. It seemed that no one knew his real identity. He was a big shot on Mount Putuo, and countless people in the entire Yangtze River Delta would catch a cold if he sneezed. Well, he was Third Master Wu, who Jiang Xianbang feared and respected, and who had driven Han Guoping into a corner. He was a tiger man who could write his life into a legend. Even though this old man had been away from the storm for many years, those tiger men that he had trained, which one of them wasn't a character that could turn the tides in Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai? Third Master, the news about the young man you asked me to investigate has come out, but he doesn't seem to have any connection with Jiang Xianbang, let alone a relative. I understand now, the middle-aged man next to him said with a puzzled expression. Third Master raised his eyebrows slightly and snorted. No connection? No one can make Jiang Xianbang, the old fox, cut his flesh. First, he was an angry King Kong in the northern Song dynasty, and now he gave me a blue and white flower with peony cloud and dragon patterns in the Yuan dynasty? I'm incompetent. The middle-aged man hurriedly lowered his head and said with fear and trepidation, Qin Sheng is from Xi'an. He was an orphan since he was a child and depended on his grandfather. He came to Shanghai from college and entered Fudan University. He met Jiang Xianbang at that time. After graduation, he disappeared for more than 2 years and only reappeared recently. As for his relationship with Han Guoping, we have no way to know. We only know that Han Guoping asked him to protect his daughter. Is there any news about his grandfather? Third Master Wu asked with interest. The middle-aged man shook his head and said, No, but his grandfather died 2 years ago. Third Master Wu lowered his eyebrows and pondered. Then he felt a little funny. This young man was really interesting. Third Master, what should we do about this? The middle-aged man asked. Third Master Wu continued to walk forward. At this moment, he was almost at the seaside. The wind at night was a little strong, which made him somewhat uncomfortable. He shook his head and said, Let's just forget about this matter. Since I have accepted the stingy Jiang Xianbang's gift, of course, I have to give him face. Moreover, Han Guoping and I do not have a deep grudge. It is just that he was too arrogant when he was in power and overshadowed me several times. If I really wanted to fight with him, he would not be a match for me. However, I like to add flowers to brocade and also like to hit people when they are down. This depends on our relationship. The middle-aged man smiled and nodded as he said, I know what to do. Don't get involved with that little girl and that guy. As for how others deal with him, it's their business. It has nothing to do with us. However, whoever is interested in Han Guoping's property can take it. We can't let outsiders benefit from it, Third Master Wu continued. After saying so much, Third Master Wu was a little tired. He sighed and said, My body is not as good as before. Let's go back. The wind is a little strong. Then Yang Deng and the middle-aged man supported Third Master Wu and walked back slowly, while Third Master Wu was talking about Qin Shing. Zhou Wenwu and Zhao Dongxing were also talking about Qin Shing at the Xishan Golf Club in Shanghai. However, their attitude was not very good. Who the hell is this Qin Shing? Is he courting death? Zhou Wenwu was hot-tempered. He scolded Qin Shing as soon as he came up. If there were other options, Zhao Dongxing would not cooperate with this guy. However, Qin Shing was indeed capable. Zhao Dongxing drank a mouthful of white wine and said, We don't know his background. We can only find out that he is from Xi'an and studied at Fudan University. We don't know how he met Han Guoping, and he has some relationship with Jiang Xianbang. Jiang Xianbang? The Jiang Xianbang who made a fortune by reselling cultural relics? Zhou Wenwu frowned when he heard the name. He was a bold but careful man. He loved wine, women, and gambling. He had everything. Not many people in Shanghai dared to provoke him because he had a big tree to lean on and enjoy the shade. Zhao Dongxing nodded and replied, Yes, it's him. This is going to be difficult. Zhou Wenwu did not care and said, As long as he dares to block my way to wealth, I don't care who he is. I will still kill him. It's just Jiang Xianbang. What's there to be afraid of? If anything happens, I will take care of it. Just do it. Zhao Dongxing was not Zhou Wenwu. Zhou Wenwu was not afraid of Jiang Xianbang, but Zhao Dongxing did not have the gut. But now that Zhou Wenwu had said it, Zhao Dongxing was unscrupulous. Han Bing has decided to go bankrupt and reorganize. This is not good for us. Zhao Dongxing sighed and said. Zhou Wenwu laughed and said, It doesn't matter if she reorganizes or not. As long as I can get all of Han Guoping's properties, it's not a big deal. Most importantly, I've been coveting his daughter for a long time. Since she escaped death in Tianshui, I'm not in a hurry to kill her this time. It'll be best if I can kidnap her. If it doesn't work, I'll kill her. Back then, Han Guoping humiliated me severely. This time, I'll return the favor and let him die with regret. This was Zhou Wenwu. He had no bottom line. Fortunately, Han Guoping did not have a wife or lover. Otherwise, he would have been ruined by him. I don't care how you do with Han Bing. I have to deal with Qin Shing first. You don't know how arrogant he was at the board meeting this afternoon. If I don't have a temper, how will others see me in the future? Zhao Dongxing said fiercely. This time, he was really angry. Zhou Wenwu did not care and said, It's up to you. You can do whatever you want. In the Sichuan restaurant, Qin Shing and the others had finished their meal and were preparing to go back. They were not going back to Thompson Golf, but to Huarun 9-Mile Bund. Compared to the Han family's villa, Han Bing could be better protected there. More importantly, he and Chang Baji still had to go out to work. After sending Han Bing back to Huarun Bund, Qin Shing said, Sleep early tonight. Don't think about anything. You have a lot of things to do these few days. What about you? Aren't you staying? Han Bing could not leave Qin Shing at all. She was afraid that Qin Shing would disappear at any moment. Qin Shing shook his head and said, I'll let Hao Lei stay. Brother Chang and I are going out to do something. We'll be back in a while. Han Bing really wanted to say, then I'll go with you. She was afraid that Qin Shing would be angry. She also knew that Qin Shing must have something important to do. She could only say, okay, then be careful and come back early. Qin Shing reminded Hao Lei to stay in Han Bing's mansion. He naturally trusted Hao Lei, so he went out with Chang Baji happily. After walking out of Huarun Bund, Chang Baji laughed and said, going to kill people? No, to drink. Qin Shing said casually. Chang Baji could not keep up with the rhythm. What the hell was going on? Was he still in the mood to drink? Qin Shing looked at the tail following them and said disdainfully, we're all trying to make a living. We have to give others a chance. Otherwise, how are they going to report back? Chapter 29. 10 miles of spring breeze collect monthly ticket in the last few hours of 2016. I hope everyone can forget about the good and bad things and embrace the coming 2017 with all your strength. P.S. I have been going back and forth to the hospital these 2 days, so the updates are not stable. I hope everyone can continue to support me. Hengshan Road was like Sanlitun Road to Beijing to Shanghai. Every city had a place like this, such as Xi'an's Defu Lane and Chengdu's Lan Kuai Fong. Every time the night fell and the lanterns were lit, the men and women in the city would go out in full force. The pressure accumulated during the day would be released at this time. They might be lonely or sad. They would drink to drown their sorrows, listen to songs to kill time, and release their nature in madness. Everyone had their own way and purpose. What about Qin Shing? Qin Shing definitely went to the bar many times. But most of the time, he went to the bar to listen to a girl sing and protect her at the same time. He did not want to be bullied by those men who had lost their minds because of the alcohol. This girl was called Su Qin. Hengshan Road, Young Bar. This was a folk bar with simple but elegant decoration. As long as you wanted to drink, basically, you could drink any kind of wine. But so far, there had not been any famous bands or singers. The boss did not reject anyone. As long as you were willing to be a resident singer, you could have a try, provided that the boss liked your songs. When he was in college, Qin Shing often came here. Xia Ding and the others also came to join in the fun. Most of the time, he was alone. A glass of beer could sit for a whole night, and the beer was given by the boss. Just like in high school, in the South Lane Bar at the foot of the city wall of the South Gate, they would sing and he would not get tired of it. When he went back to Shanghai, Qin Shing went to the Sichuan restaurant to eat, but he did not come here for a walk. It should be said that he had not been here for a long time. But he knew that the girl who used to be there could not sing here anymore. She sang Chen Qizhen, she sang Kai Jianya, she sang Chun-Li, she also sang Mariah Carey, and occasionally sang Taylor Swift. Some record companies wanted to promote her, but she refused, saying that she did not want to live that kind of life. At the end of October, Shanghai was still very hot, and Hengshan Road was still very lively. Qin Shing and Chang Baji did not care about the people following behind them at all. They parked the Mercedes-Benz in a parking space not far from the bar, and then walked quickly into Young Bar. Maybe because it was not a weekend, there were not many people in the bar, sitting in twos and threes, smoking, chatting, drinking, and listening to songs. A male singer, who was not handsome but had a literary style, was singing Chengdu by Zhao Lei. Zhao Lei's new song had been very popular recently, and many people were singing it on the streets and alleys. Qin Shing liked this song, but he liked Zhao Lei more. He felt that Zhao Lei was really talented. Most folk singers were sentimental and sad, but his songs did not have that kind of negative energy. Every song he sang was like a simple narrative of his life experience, and every lyric was like a painting, which could give people unlimited imagination and let everyone be immersed in it. For example, in this song, Chengdu, Qin Shing liked the line in it the most, Chengdu, the only one that can't be taken away, is you. This line was very appropriate because Chengdu also had his story. Back then, he met her in Chengdu. This she was not Su Qin, but the she who made him owe her a hot pot meal. He met her at the Time Bar in Juyen Bridge. He sat there alone, listening to songs, smoking, and drinking, while she sat at the table next to him, quietly drinking and listening to songs. It was said that a big shot who had once been powerful in Sichuan and Chongqing came from there. Maybe it was fate. He stood up and asked a person? She replied, alone. He said, "You don't mind me sitting here?" She shook her head and said nothing. So he sat down and the two of them began to chat casually. She seemed to be not very interested and just said perfunctory words. He asked her, "Traveling?" She nodded. He said, "Me too. Let's go together." He thought that she would refuse. Unexpectedly, she just smiled and said, "Okay." So, a journey of one person became a journey of two people. They traveled together and visited all the cities in Sichuan. In the end, they parted at the Sea of Bamboo in the south of Sichuan. She went to Yunnan and he went to Tibet. He felt that she was his parallel world. Maybe she also had the same feeling, but they did not get to know each other further. They just treated each other as a passerby on the journey. He said, "Next time we meet, I will chase after you." She said, "Then treat me to a hot pot meal first." Since then, more than a year had passed. They had not seen each other or contacted each other. Qin Xing and Chong Baji found a table casually. The boss, who was over 50 years old but was not old, was not there. The waiters in the bar should be new. No one knew Qin Xing. After all, no one would be willing to be a waitress forever. If there were old waiters here, they would definitely recognize the boyfriend of the most popular female singer in Young. "What would you like to drink?" the waitress asked politely. Judging from her accent, she should be from Sichuan. Anyway, most of the waiters in this bar were college students, so the waiters changed frequently. Qin Xing said casually, "2 bottles of beer." Just 2 bottles of beer, nothing else?" The waitress was a little disappointed. After all, these drinks came with a commission. Qin Xing did not wait for the waitress to start promoting and interrupted. "Just 2 bottles of beer, nothing else, thank you." "Okay." The waitress could only smile and leave, without any temper. After the waitress left, Chong Baji joked, "I say, Qin Xing, you brought me to experience the nightlife of Big Shanghai. You don't have to be so stingy, right? 1 bottle of beer per person. If this was in Xi'an, no matter which venue, no matter what kind of alcohol, you will definitely drink to your heart's content." "No, I'm just used to it. I was a student in the past, so I was poor. I could only afford a bottle of beer. Later on, when I got to know the boss gave me a bottle of beer," Qin Xing explained with a smile. Chong Baji was at least at ease in this impetuous society. How could he not know what was going on? He laughed and said, "Since you brought me here, there must be a story. I just want to recall the past. There used to be a girl who sang here, and I liked to hear her sing." Qin Xing did not hide his past. Ex-girlfriend or first love? Chong Baji laughed and asked in a gossipy manner. Qin Xing did not expect this uncle over 40 years old to like to pry into other people's privacy. He did not avoid this question and replied, "Ex-girlfriend and first love. No wonder you came here. It seems like you still can't let go of this relationship. You young people, what love, it is not real at all. In my eyes, there is nothing more important than life and death." Chong Baji's Mandarin with a Shaanxi dialect was somewhat funny, but the realm of his words was really not ordinary. Qin Xing did not deny it and said, "That's true, there is nothing more important than life and death. I think that Han Bing is not bad. Since you protect her so desperately, you probably like her. Based on my many years of experience, she also has a good impression of you. You two are a perfect match, a match made in heaven." Not only did Chong Baji like to gossip, He also liked to be a matchmaker. Qin Shing rolled his eyes helplessly. He really did not want to bother with him. He knew that the more he tried to explain, the more he would make things worse. When the 2 bottles of beer arrived, Qin Shing only took a sip and Chang Baji, who was sitting opposite him, finished the whole bottle. This uncle's alcohol tolerance was really high. After finishing the beer, Chang Baji stared at Qin Shing with a smile. Obviously, he did not want to pay today. He wanted to take advantage of Qin Shing. Qin Shing really wanted to say, "You are king looking for trouble." But he did not have the confidence to do so. If they really fought, he would not be Chang Baji's opponent at all. He estimated that he would be beaten up badly. Helplessly, he called the waiter over and said, "Another dozen Budweiser." Hearing this, the waiter took the money and left happily. "That's more like it." Chang Baji nodded and looked like he was worth teaching. Qin Shing listened to the song quietly and drank his beer in small mouthfuls, which was totally different from his usual forthright way of drinking wine and eating meat in big mouthfuls. Why? Because he always drank 1 bottle of beer here, because Su Qin did not like him to drink, so she only allowed him to drink 1 bottle. When the bottle of beer was finished, the resident singer had finished singing and was resting at the side. It was estimated that he would continue in half an hour. So Qin Shing squinted his eyes and smiled. He stood up slowly and asked, "Can I borrow your guitar?" The artistic resident singer stared at Qin Shing in confusion. Qin Shing said with a smile, "I want to sing a song." The person in charge of the bar had been changed. For this kind of situation they had always allowed it and never refused it. So they nodded. The resident singer handed the guitar to Qin Shing. Qin Shing sat in the seat that used to belong to Su Qin and exchanged a few words with the band next to him. Fortunately, the band knew this song. After all, it was a folk bar. Qin Shing tried the microphone. After he was ready, he nodded to the band and then looked at the crowd. Without any stage fright, he said, "A song called Spring Breeze, for everyone." At this time, there were already many guests. For this kind of excitement, everyone liked to make a scene, applauding and screaming. Chang Baji opened his eyes wide and looked incredible. He did not expect Qin Shing to be so good at singing. After he came to himself, he shouted loudly. The music started, the prelude. Qin Shing squinted his eyes and played the guitar. "I am in the 2nd ring road, thinking of you. You are on the distant mountain, the spring breeze is 10 miles. Today the wind blows to you, and it rains. I say that all the wine is not as good as you. I sing for you in the night of the drum tower, the fragrance of flowers comes naturally. Somewhere else, silent meeting and expectation. The plane flies over the busy city. Thousands of miles away, not leaving. Need all the spring into a morning. Turn all the words that can't stop into a secret and close the door. Inexplicable feelings, may I ask, who will take it away? I can only turn time into a song, and leave it in the mountains and rivers." When Qin Shing's voice sounded and his skillful playing of the guitar, everyone knew that he was an expert, not a layman. He was even better than the resident singer. Moreover, his voice was a little hoarse and deep. Everyone listened quietly, including Chang Baji. He was really taken aback. "Repeat, the last time." When Qin Shing finished singing the last sentence, "I say that all the wine is not as good as you," the audience applauded, mixed with whistles and screams. The 40-year-old Uncle Chang Baji was the craziest, and Qin Shing just said to the audience, "Thank you." Then he returned the guitar to the stunned resident singer, walked slowly back to Chang Baji, and said softly, "Let's go." The two of them swaggered off, leaving behind a chorus of hisses. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.